A Court of Fairies and Fiction. Akafath Girls Podcast. Hosts Mel Liv and Aka. A bookish theory and discussion podcast for the Akatar, Crescent City, and Tug series, as well as other romantasy books. Guest episode, Maasverse Hodgepodge with Theresa.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today I have Theresa from my Instagram group chat joining us to talk all things Lucien. Hello, Theresa. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I was so excited that you wanted to come on because how long have we been ranting? Let's be real.
Oh my God. Well, I've only read Akatar. I started reading Akatar in May of 2024. I started right before I went on a cruise.
Oh
and
my
all my
God.
friends, like my three best friends, they already read everything in the SJM universe. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So they peer pressured me into reading Akatar. I was solely a fanfic reader for
Oh no.
like years, like decades. I only live on AO3 and I only live in the fandom that I like on AO3.
Yeah.
So it was either anime fandoms or Batman fandom, specifically Nightwing. But they were like, you need to read Akatar. It's just like a fanfic. You would get really into it. And I'm like, okay. So I picked it up for this cruise and I read Tar,
Ruined the cruise.
and I read Tar, which was the first book, and I really liked it.
Yeah.
But I was different than my friends. I grasped onto Lucien.
Lucien.
Hard.
Page 1, baby.
Hard. I was like, who's that?
Who's that? He's mine. I want him.
And I came to my friends. I came to my friends and all I wanted to do was talk about Lucien. And like I'm only like maybe 10 chapters in. He's only had a handful of moments, but they're all so charismatic.
So funny.
That I was like, there's more to this character than what's on this page.
Oh yeah.
This character has to be a major player for the rest of the books. Like we're just not going to drop him, are we?
Yeah.
He's not going to disappear.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't tell me anything. They were really good friends. They would not tell me a thing. They wouldn't give me their opinions about characters.
Oh, no.
They wouldn't give me their opinions about what's going to happen because I'm a theorist. I read, I pick up the clues, and I start theorizing of what I think is going to come
100%.
From it.
Yeah.
And they would ask me like questions. Like I remember one day I had just read the first like maybe 6 chapters. Sarah's now in spring court. Okay. And I remember one day one of my friends came to me and she's like, well, what do you think about the sisters? And she was like trying to
loaded
see my
question.
it was a loaded question. She wanted to see my feelings on it because I was already starting to really start like developing thoughts about certain people. I was like, I really don't have thoughts about them yet. And she's like, really? I was like, well, it's all from Sarah's POV. And she's just, I can't trust her from a singular first person point of view.
Thank you. I was like, I started reading it and I was like, oh, it's first person. It's first person, which is really hypocritical of me because my book is in first person. But to be fair, I have like 7 or 8 POVs. It's not just one person.
Yeah.
Like that's what you should do. Like if you're writing in first person, you should still have multiple people's points of view. Not, like just Farah's the whole series till like Akasif. I was so pissed.
Yeah. So that's why I love Crescent City so much more than the first 3 Akatar books.
Yes.
And it sounds so hard to say because I love Akatar. Like I am super into theorizing in Akatar, deep diving into the characters in Akatar.
I will always say Crescent City is her most maturely written series, her best written series, but Akatar is the most theorizable. And that's why it's so popular.
Yeah.
And especially with the crossover now and the fact that they're both unfinished series, which I feel like this is a huge point that stems from people's like hate of Hofas. Because I'm like, you guys are reading it as if this is the end of the series and you didn't get any more information when it's not. Like we're going to get more information. She's not going to put the whole rest of the series in one book. Like it's not finished yet.
Yeah.
Let it cook.
Yeah, exactly. And I just felt like, I mean, everything was so closed loop in Crescent City.
Yeah.
So I never felt like we were left with what the hell happened? Why did that happen?
Like,
where did this come from? Why have we not seen this character in like 3 books now?
And third person.
Yeah. Like that's where like, so Crescent City's this closed loop. I don't really need to grasp onto like little clues because there's a big story happening elsewhere. We know the big story. We do know the puzzle pieces for what's to come. We don't have the clothes for Therion. We don't have the clothes for Ithan. We don't have the clothes for Hypaxia. We're pretty done with Bryce and Hunt. They're going to be secondary characters to these 3 characters.
I love how you said Ithan.
Oh, sorry. I am going to call Ethan.
It's Ethan. I tell everyone, they're
Ethan.
like, "Why is it spelled like that?" I was like, "I don't know, but it's Ethan."
I love the name Ethan though. I just grasped onto it.
So many people made fun of it when the books first came out because they're like, "What the hell kind of name is Ethan?" And then they would go to like the guide and they're like, "Oh, it's Ethan. Never mind." Like that was her just wanting to be like cool. Like
Yeah.
it's like a K name instead of a C name. Like,
Yeah. My son has a K name instead of a C name.
my sister has an IE instead of an EE. Like
There we go.
It's so funny.
It's hilarious. But I apologize to all the Crescent City fans. I'm going to call Ethan instead.
Triggered.
Okay, you all can get me in the comments. I understand.
Oh man.
But he's my baby after Therion.
Yeah. I actually said yesterday there was I did a stitch off of Antoinette's video about the lint picking. And so I'm like, Rhys and the lint picking and Ethan and the sunball, like people are never gonna let that go. But it's hilarious because if you actually look up how many times they lint pick or like Ethan mentions sunball, it's literally like maybe a handful of times in the whole series. Like it's not that much.
Yeah.
To be harping on like this and making jokes about. Like I could see if it was every chapter, but like it's not.
I haven't come across any major Crescent City hate in the fandom, but I'm not super into the Crescent City fandom like I am in the ACOTAR fandom. So I don't know. I know that there's people who don't like Baryon. I know that there's people who don't like Flynn, and I know that
Hunt, which I was shocked at.
Who?
Hunt.
Flynn?
People don't like Hunt.
I don't understand that. He is like the best. He is literally Lucien in Crescent City.
The green flag
person.
MMC. I'm like, you're saying he's boring. Why? Because he isn't an abusive fuck like Rhys? Exactly. Or even Rowan when Rowan first started out. I feel like SJM had a level with her MMCs. So her first level with Rowan was half asshole turned better mate. And then with Rhys, she went whole asshole. And then with Hunt, she went whole cinnamon roll. And so everyone's like, oh, he's boring. I'm like, because he's not morally gray. He's just good.
My thing is, Crescent City guys are 10 times better than most of the ACOTAR guys.
Yeah.
Like, it just amazes me how much like the Crescent City guys are not praised and loved on as much as the Bat Boys. And I'm just like, but these guys are so much better. It's Bryce and her gaggle of men.
Yes,
okay, her harem of men that she only sleeps with one of them.
I know.
But every single one of them is
Farrah.
kind and good, and they respect her boundaries and they respect her opinion. And yeah, Bryce is young and she maybe shouldn't have as much power as she does. But you want to know something? She's a chaos demon.
Yeah.
Like anytime.
And you want to know what? She's not a teenager.
Yeah.
She's fucking 25. Okay. Yeah. She's not 18, 19. Like Elain and Farrah. Like she's more mature than that.
And plus, on top of that, unlike Elain and Farrah, who purposely put themselves, I don't know about Elain. I have not read Tog. Yeah. Sorry, people. I will be reading it soon. But
she's just as insufferable as Farrah, and I'm gonna get so much hate for that, but she literally is.
But unlike Farrah and Elain, who are probably, they want to go out and do this. They want to be a bigger person in the story. Like they know their story is going to be in a book. Okay. Bryce didn't want that. She just fuck. The only one who knows what to do is me, and I have to do it.
Elain's like, I have to go back and reclaim my kingdom. I'm queen. And then Farrah's like, I'm gonna be High Lady of the Night Court. And Bryce is like, I don't want to rule over any of you assholes. Please take my crown from me. I want a normal goddamn life.
Yes.
And I was like, I respect that.
And personally, it works for Bryce. Bryce did not grow up in the army, did not grow up being trained for battle like Rune and Flynn and Hunt and Therion and Ethan.
Using her magic even. She didn't even know she had magic.
So when they're going up against the bad guys who are military forces, they don't know how to respond to her plans because her plans don't make sense. And the few times that
there's no strategy.
And the few times that they go in with a strategy that someone else planned for them, it blows up in their face. Improv that Bryce does, it's what saves them.
I know. But see, people also make the argument like, oh, how do you like Bryce and you don't like Elain? She tried to make Bryce Elain 2.0 and it didn't work. I'm like, okay, well, there's a little bit of a difference here. Elain made plans and kept them from her friends on purpose because self-sacrificial. Hello, Rhysand, apparently. She doesn't want anyone to know what she's doing. She doesn't want to get anyone in trouble. She wants to handle everything herself. Yeah. Whereas for Bryce, it was more of a panic response I saw it, because with Bryce, like, she has not just a kingdom or kingdoms, she has the whole literal planet on her shoulders.
Yes.
And I feel like people do not take in the gravity of that.
Yeah.
They're not thinking of that. Like, the actual globe, their actual whole entire planet, like Earth. Earth is actually another name for Midgard, by the way.
Yeah.
The whole fucking globe is on her shoulders, or the Asteri will explode it like a fucking meteor. So she's not thinking, oh, I have to stop for 10 minutes and explain all of this shit that I learned in Prithian to all of these people who are going to have 500 questions. She just doesn't want to deal with that, because you don't have the time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
They literally didn't have the time to do that. The Asteri already, blew up the humans and all this stuff. Like, stuff was already happening. So she really didn't have time to sit down and cuddle people,
Yeah.
Where I guess they could say the same about Elain, but with Elain, again, it was more about her personal thoughts than like what was on her shoulders. It was more about her personal feelings towards them.
And I had issues with Bryce keeping things from Hunt.
Yeah.
And I had to come to terms with, why was she doing this? Why did she keep keeping Hunt out of the loop?
Yeah.
And then I don't like it when someone flips the narrative around. So Hunt's mad at Bryce for not including him, and then Bryce is mad at Hunt for being mad at her for not trusting her. And it's like, he doesn't not trust you. He just wants you to trust him. He's mad that you don't trust him enough to include you. So I don't like when the narrative changes like that. Feyre does it too. Feyre does it a lot. Which is why I just struggle with Theresa. But I had to like come to terms with like, okay, Bryce is different. She's living in a different world. She wasn't raised a specific way. She didn't have like her family's lives like on her shoulders at the age of 14. She didn't have the rest of Prithian on her shoulders under the mountain. So there is a difference in Bryce, but still like with Bryce, like I don't know. I just like her chaos energy. I like that she does turn around and she does explain herself. And apologize.
I totally, yes. And that's what people that hate Bryce won't admit, that they had their moment. They came to terms with it. They literally talked it out, and no one's mad anymore. And they're holding on to it. Like, I don't know. They do that with Tamlin too, but.
Bryce and Hunt are very much a true married couple. I mean, when me and my husband, when we decide we
don't decide
on a fight, but when we have a fight because of miscommunication,
that's what happens.
At some point, people walk away from each other because they're angry and they can't just continue this anger at each other. You need to calm down, and then you come back together and go, okay, I understand why you're upset. Let
me see your point of view. You see my point of view.
Yeah. And that's where Bryce and Hunt, when they do have that miscommunication and Bryce takes it harder than Hunt meant for it to be taken, they do come back together. Bryce usually she does apologize.
Yes.
I don't always care that Hunt apologizes, because sometimes he's accidentally blamed.
Cinnamon roll.
You yelled at him for being upset.
I know. I find it funny. Like, I related to Bryce there, because like when I'm stressed, I don't want anybody to be around me. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to see you. I don't want to smell you. Like, get out of my face for 2 seconds. Yeah. So when I read the scene of them at like Morven's castle, and she's just like, don't talk to me, and and she's like, I was like, I get this to a T. And it's not that she doesn't love him, and it's not that she doesn't want to confide in him, and it's also not that he doesn't trust her and all this stuff, but she's literally so stressed out. All she can handle at that moment is herself.
Yeah.
So I totally understood that, and I was literally shocked by the fandom like hating her for that. And I was like, do you guys like not understand different stress responses? Because I feel like this is why I don't have friends. I'm Bryce. I'm Bryce, I'm Nesta, I'm Tamlin. I'm like all the people everyone hates.
Oh no.
But
say that.
It's just hilarious.
See, I'm semi opposite. I just go with the flow. I'm very much so like my friends could be having an awful, awful day and they could snap at me. And I'll take it like internally. I'd be like, what did I do to get yelled at? But I'm never going to yell at them back and be like, why are you being cranky? Why are you being a bitch? Any of that. I'm like, okay, something's going on. They're either never going to talk to me again, and I'm just going to have to deal with that, or they're going.
You've seen me go off in the chat. You've seen me.
Oh, me and you have had disagreements too, which is it's so funny.
It doesn't matter.
It's always funny when like me and you have a disagreement over something, and I'm like, all these other people are just sitting back watching Theresa and Mel go
like popcorn.
They're like our moms. They're the ones always telling us how the story goes.
Oh my god, was that Rachel? She's hilarious.
Well, she's never said that, but I'm like waiting for Rachel to like put popcorn up going, these two are fighting. They never fight. They're usually
the girls are fighting. It's just so funny. I don't know. I will always say I'm like totally a Nesta and partially a Bryce, but it's just hilarious because people literally don't understand people like us. And I'm like, if you just step back and like, not everyone reacts the same to things. Like,
Mhm.
I understand that you don't react that way, but when you're saying you don't understand how anyone could react that way, it's a little weird to me.
Mhm.
It's
No,
like it doesn't have to be your personal experience for you to, you know, look and understand something.
yeah. I try to go into most situations of trying to understand it from everyone's point of view, trying to
Mhm.
understand, like, I don't know why so and so is upset today, you know?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna have to deal with them being upset, and hopefully in like a day or two they'll calm down and we can
Yeah.
talk it out
Yeah.
and see if it's something I did and I need to change, or if it's something that they're just dealing with and they just
Yeah.
were stressed out. I can
So it's like, I don't care.
will
You don't
always
like
try
my
and
opinion on a book. I don't give a fuck.
yeah,
Like,
I will always try and find a middle ground with someone,
yeah.
but I also expect them to meet me in the middle ground too. Like, I agree with what you're saying about
Mhm.
Reese. I
Yeah.
also agree with the ones who say that Reese was essayed, you know,
Mhm.
because I'm like, it's a very
It's
fine line.
nuanced. And
It's a
there's
very,
little, yeah.
it's a very fine line.
But also,
you know?
again, the first person POV, and it's like, we know that he keeps secrets. We know he hasn't told the whole truth. And we know that he's kind of a liar at different points. So
Yeah.
it's also like, do you believe him? Do you not totally believe him?
Yeah. And you know my stance
Yeah.
on Lydia. I have a very similar stance on Lydia,
I
where you see Lydia as a true victim.
no, I don't. No,
don't.
you didn't see my threads post yesterday. I'm gonna pull it up right now.
So, like, I think we didn't have an argument, but you were saying something about Lydia and Pollux's relationship and how it was non-consensual.
Yes.
And in my head, it's consensual.
Yeah.
She
Not all the time. I'm
Yeah.
saying like, yes, there were times she would absolutely sleep with him to
Yeah.
distract him and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Again, just like Reese with Amarantha. This was their plan.
Yeah.
They knew what they were going to have to do. They chose to do it.
Mhm.
But I'm talking about like the times like the time in the shower where he grabbed her and
Yeah.
when she was literally asleep talking to Rune and he was like
Mhm.
raping her in her sleep and
Yeah.
pulled her out of the dream and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So like
Because
there are times where he definitely like raped her.
Yeah, and I don't want the fandom to
But-
think I'm denouncing like marital rape.
Oh no,
That
yeah.
happens, you know.
Yeah.
I know that happens. I know
Yeah.
boyfriend girlfriend
Yeah.
relationship rape happens.
Yeah.
It's just she put herself into that position,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's her fault that
Yeah.
happened.
Mhm.
I'm just saying I see it the same. I see it
Like Reese and Amber, like the sex
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm saying the only time on page, I think, or it might have been twice. I don't remember if it was once or twice, but like the times when she was 100% raped was when she was sleeping. The times when she was sleeping and it pulled her out of sleep, like,
Yeah.
she didn't consent to that.
No.
Like, even though she was in her bed, like, that doesn't mean she consented to that, you know?
That doesn't mean that she has the right to her body.
Yeah,
when she doesn't
exactly.
Want him to.
Yeah.
We don't
So,
know
like,
if
the
she
other
says
times-
no or whatnot. Like,
Yeah.
even if she doesn't say no and she doesn't want it,
Yeah.
that's not right. You know,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like, the
It's a
sleeping
very
one.
fine line between Reese and Amarantha and
Yeah.
Lydia's situation too, because they're
Yeah.
both playing that double agent. They're
Mhm.
both playing this person who's going to do horrible, shitty ass
Yes.
things that
Yes.
I'm not going to agree with
Yeah.
just to protect other people.
Yeah.
And I just have a hard time with
Yeah.
that. I have a
But
hard
that's what I'm saying. Obviously, I hate Reese. I don't hate Lydia anymore, but she's just meh to me.
Mhm.
I don't think she's amazing. I don't think she's the worst. I don't think she's the best. She's just kind of there to me now.
That's how it is.
I will say, like I said, the thing that Reese didn't have that Lydia had on her side for me to kind of change from I hate you to you're okay was the kids. Because,
Yeah.
like, I'm like, okay, you did it to protect your babies. Like, Sarah, you knew that was the only thing that could redeem her.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
I guess.
It was hard. I mean, you know how we've had our discussion.
I put
You have
someone
sat
put
there
on
and listened to me rant.
someone put on threads yesterday. I'm gonna read it because I thought of you the whole time I was writing this. But someone put on threads. We all know books are subjective, our life experiences are different, and that provides unique perspectives on certain book characters. I respect that. With that being said, what is a book character that you strongly dislike, and no matter what, if they have done good or have been redeemed, you still won't like them? Could be from any book series. And then she went on to say, like, Moore and Danica. And so I reblogged it, or reposted it. And I said, obviously Rhysand. And then right underneath I said, also, ... Lydia is meh to me. I don't hate her, but I still think Rune deserves way better than an ex-murderer for hire.
Yes.
Also, Especially after his childhood with being abused and all of this stuff. And like also I don't like that she participated in his torture. Like I get that she was being watched, but it just gave Reese twisting Farrah's bone to me, and I don't like that at all. Like you didn't have to. You could have made some excuse to go on some other mission. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I said,
I understand she had to be there to make sure that Pollux and Hawk didn't actually kill them, because they would have.
I know.
They would have kept just one alive and killed the other two.
Yes, I know, but it's like, again, that double-edged sword. And I said, I get her story. Love the kids part, but meh, don't get the hype, and it kind of annoys me. And then I put, like, as a little aside, I said, but what I will never forgive her for, the one thing I will never forgive her for, is the fact that she didn't invite his goddamn mother to his wedding.
Wait.
His mom had nothing good in her life, and she missed her only child's wedding.
When did they get married? Is that in a bonus chapter?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. Oh, I haven't read all the bonus chapters yet. I didn't know they got married. Was it a secret ceremony like Theresa and Theresa? Oh.
Well, yes. So Lydia planned it as a surprise for Rune, which you rushing him a little bit. Kind of like Reese, again, giving Reese and Farrah, which I don't really like. But they're at a museum. They're having fun, domestic time, whatever. And then she's like, oh, will you marry me or whatever? And obviously he's like really happy, says yes. And she's like, what about right now? And they're like right outside the venue and everything's all set up. And he's like,
oh my God.
Yeah. And of course, Rune being.
And his brothers aren't there either. Like he considers Flynn and Dex.
Oh, they were there. Everyone was there.
Oh,
every fucking buddy was there but his mom.
For real.
For real. Yeah. She was saying like her kids were there. His friends were there. Bryce was there. Hunt was there. Everyone was there. And Bryce was saying how, oh, Lydia and I gathered everyone up and to surprise you and did it. I was like, where's his mom?
Okay, I have a question. Was Bryce's mom there?
No.
Okay. No. You would have been livid if Bryce's mom was there and Lauren was not.
I was like, where the fuck is she?
Oh.
I was rip shit. I was so mad. I was like, she lived the shittiest life under Einar. She got separated from Tamlin. She can't show her wings, and she's missing her baby's wedding.
No. Oh.
We'll never forgive that. Ever.
Even if your theory isn't true. Okay? Even if your theory's not true. Let's take the theory out of it.
It's still his mom.
It's still his mom. And she still lived a life that was not good. Like, you can see the woman she is. She has no sense of confidence. She has no sense of self. Like, she doesn't even think, I need to tell my bodyguards that the heat in my house isn't... The
sprinklers are broken. Like, she just doesn't...
think. Like, she thinks she's a burden. She was raised to feel like she's a burden. She doesn't know how to raise a child. Like, Rune goes into his house and goes, this is my mom's house.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's no personal touches.
I think he remembers going to visit Bryce once in that story, and he remembers seeing all the artwork.
Oh, Flynn, I think. Flynn and Declan.
Flynn.
Yeah.
Flynn's house or something. Or Declan.
Yeah. No, Declan's house. Yeah.
Okay. So he remembers
with the normal family.
He remembers going to Declan's house and seeing all of Declan's artwork up on the refrigerator and on the walls, as a child. And he would bring the same stuff home, and it would never... She never thought that's something I'm supposed to do, because in her mind, she's not allowed to change the house. And
or even like she was raised that way. Like nobody celebrated her, so she doesn't think that it's like a normal thing to do.
Yeah.
Which again could go with my theory, because we know Reese's dad was a piece of shit. But just saying.
Yeah.
But it's like she lived through all this shit, and whatever she knew about Einar didn't know about Einar. It literally doesn't matter. She was still that person, and she's still his mom.
Yeah, and he loves her. Even though he feels like he has to, even though I think I don't remember if his exact words were, I did read that chapter. His exact words were, I'm like her parent.
Yeah. And he's like, she will never ask for help, so I always have to, I have to pop in to make sure she's okay, to make sure things are functioning, to make sure, Yeah. And it was like.
Which also, it also reinforces why he's so desperate to have a familiar relationship with Bryce, because he's like, I don't have a father-son relationship with my father. I don't have a mother-son relationship with my mother. I just want one familiar relationship where that's my sister.
I can be a brother to my sister,
Yeah, and it doesn't matter.
They're my favorite sibling relationship. Like, yeah. Whether, again, tossing out the theories here, but whether or not they're actually blood related because of my theory, they're still brother and sister, which is what I will say about, you know, Asriel and Rhys's sister, and Asriel and Rhys's sister and Cassian. Like, that's another thing that ticks me off. Not, I know we were supposed to do this episode about Lucien, and we will. I just need to get this off my plate really quick because I know I've ranted about this before, but I need to repeat it because it's so freaking important. Adopted and foster siblings are siblings.
Yeah.
Blood or no, they are your siblings.
Yeah.
Especially if you are already living in the house when they're born.
Yeah.
So the fact that people will ship Asriel with Rhys's sister, no, you're shipping him with his sister.
Yeah.
That's gross. Stop.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, him and Cassian were living there when she was born.
Yeah.
They saw her as a newborn. Like, they saw her in diapers. Like, that's fucking weird.
Yeah.
Please don't. No.
I mean,
it's their sister. They call Rhys their brother.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't they call her their sister? Like,
yeah.
Which is another thing. Like, it's weird to me that they never talk about her, but I digress.
Oh my God. I hope we get a little bit more backstory into who his little sister was, how old she was, you know, when everything happened, when it happened. I don't know.
He's like, oh, I'm a couple centuries older than her. So she was at least 100. Well, I wouldn't say 100, maybe at least 50-ish when they died. She was an adult.
Okay.
Basically. So even if she was in her 20s, she was an adult.
Okay. I always think that it's like a little 15-year-old who was killed with her mother that day.
Everyone thinks that. I'm like, no, she was an adult. Rhys is like, oh, I'm a couple centuries older than her. So like if he was already like, I don't know, 300 or whatever, she was like 100. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, 250, 50, you know, whatever. But I also find it funny because it's kind of like, to me, it's like, okay, Rhys was the rigid heir and he had to study and he had to learn all this stuff from his dad and da-da-da-da-da. And then you just have the classic annoying, wild little sister that doesn't want to play by the rules and any of this stuff. And regardless of her age, she's still going to be who she is. Mm-hmm. And when he talks in Akamath, when he talks about her, you know, going to the artist quarters and that being her favorite place in Valaris, and then her dad having to track her down and drag her out kicking and screaming, made me laugh because I was like, classic little sister. Like, like, I'm not your heir. I don't have to listen to you. And he's like, you don't. Let's go. And like, just dragging her out of there. And it just makes me laugh because when I think about my theory and I think about, you know, who the clues that we've gotten of who she is versus if she's Lauren and like what did she go through to become who she was now in Crescent City? Like, I need the story. I just need to know, you know? Yeah. But people were pointing out like, oh, well, if she was kicking and screaming, maybe she was a kid or whatever. I said, okay, but if she was a kid, she wouldn't have ventured there alone. Like, she would have gone with someone. But Rhys like specifically says like, oh, she would go to the artist quarters and then my dad would have to find her and drag her out to do it. So it's like she wasn't a little kid going to the middle of the city by herself. Like, you know,
I think the part that Rhys was reflecting on, they were on a bridge.
Yeah, they were on
looking at the rainbow.
Roof, something
no,
like
they're
that.
on a bridge. They had just crossed over the bridge.
Yeah.
They crossed over
the rainbow.
And they're looking at the rainbow, which is the reflection of the lights on the water.
Yeah.
And Rhys says to Feyre, this was my sister's favorite spot.
Yes.
Stay here for hours just looking at the rainbow, and my father would have to come and drag her away. And that's where I think of a little kid, because that's exactly what a little kid would do who has ownership of an entire safe city. Go sit on a bridge and look at the rainbow. But
he specifically mentions her loving the artist quarters. So I'm like, if she's an artist, then she's not a little kid.
Yeah, well, that could be later on. I'm thinking he's reflecting of a child having to be told, have to come home and go to bed.
Yeah, that could be true. But there's the other thing with Rhys and the way that he words things, because it's so weird. Because then it's like, all right, well, if she was a little kid and like, say you or your mom or whatever were taking her to the rainbow to just look at it or whatever, why would your dad have to drag her back if you guys are there with her? Right?
I think he was. I think like how Rhys has a townhouse in the city, and then there's the House of Wind. I think they had a house also, and they didn't just live in the House of Wind.
Yeah,
there's a chance that they might have had a house also, and he's dragging her back to the house.
Well, they had Moonstone Palace.
Yeah, that's over at Hewn City.
Yeah, they had the House of Wind, which is in Valaris, so they could have gone to the House of Wind, I guess. I don't know. I don't recall whether the townhouse was theirs or if Rhys bought it after.
We also have to remember Rhys's father does not have wings.
Yeah.
He is not walking up 10,000 steps to get to the House of Wind. He's not allowing his Illyrian wife to fly him up there.
To carry him, I know.
With the big old 1100-year-old High Lord of Night in her arms, flying him up to the House of Wind for bedtime.
My other thing. That was my other thing. I was like, why do you guys own the House of Wind if like your dad couldn't even access it? I don't get it.
Nobody can access it. How the hell did everyone get up there?
Yeah.
How?
Did
everyone walk up the steps?
I want to know.
The lords come off the House of Wind for Starfall Night.
Apparently not, because he also says in Akathas, oh, I'm totally willing to hear any complaints my people have, but they just have to figure out a way to get up to the House of Wind. Wow, what a great leader you are. I will answer your concerns if you go up 10,000 steps.
Well, let's bring it back to Lucien. How the hell did Lucien get to the House of Wind in Sif?
Azriel is forced to fly.
Azriel at this point in time is pissed off at Lucien. Azriel wants nothing to do with Lucien.
Cassian?
He doesn't want to touch him. He's not even spying on Lucien at this moment in time because he's so pissed off at Lucien, which surprised Rhys. Rhys is like, you're not spying on Lucien? Yeah. He's like, no. He is sent to the House of Wind to watch Nesta train, and he watches Nesta use her power on the
punching bag. Yeah, okay, I remember.
And he's like, will Cauldron help us?
Yeah.
And Cassian's like, why are you here? Shouldn't you be with your mate? And he's like, I'm not always in the city to see my mate.
Yes, I love that. I love that line because all the Aleutian haters are like, he's forcing himself on his mate. He's forcing his presence. I was like, the fuck he is?
No, he's not. He's giving her the space that she has asked for. But so he's up there. Cassian's like, why are you not with Elain? He gives his answer.
Yeah.
And Cassian's like, well, why are you here? And he's like, Feyre wanted me to give her a report on Nesta. And it actually pissed Cassian off.
Yeah, who dropped him off?
Because he's like, that's what Azriel's for.
And they're both there. So Rhys,
why the hell did
that's so awkward.
Report from Lucien about Nesta.
And Rhys hates him too. Rhys threatens him. Okay, but also the fact, like, I don't know. Does Lucien have some sort of funky? I mean, he has spell cleaving powers, so could he have cleaved the wards to Winnow?
Well, I think Feyre. This is before they found out she can make made weapons too.
Yes.
But they're still trying to figure out her magic, I think. I don't know exactly. So I'm wondering if Feyre's using her inside knowledge of over who Lucien is in her favor without telling Lucien who he is. She's like, well, since I know who you are,
I know.
Use you to my advantage. Well, I'm not going to tell you who you are.
You are. I know. I hate that so much. I wonder.
Because they did have that moment in Ackle War.
I was just going to bring that up. I think I know which one you're going to
bring. After they leave the House of Wind, they come down to the townhouse, and Nesta's so mad that there's flames in her eyes, and they all saw it.
Lucian's like, oh shit.
And Rhys, was it Rhys? I think it was actually Rhys who turned to Lucien and goes, are those flames that you recognize? And he's like, nothing in my repertoire.
Yeah. He goes, nothing in my arsenal. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing in my arsenal. And I'm like going, okay, are they trying to do this again with him to see if he recognizes her flame magic? To see if there is anything that he knows about it? It's like, I'm like, can you just or just let another to tell me what's going on? Why didn't you send up the 10,000 steps?
I hate
or it had to be Rhys who sent it had to be Rhys who flew him in, because
Feyre flew him in her arms.
Azriel would have stayed around if it was Azriel.
So can we talk really quick about his spell cleaving?
Yeah.
I said this in like season 1, but not a lot of people watch our season 1 because, like I said, our mics were shit.
Yeah.
I believe it was episode 9 of season 1, and I remember this specifically because usually I film in my room and the background is like my books and my window, but in this one episode it was flipped, so I was sitting against my pillows, and that's why I remember this because again, photographic memory, like weird. I'm like, oh, that was the episode I was sitting in a different position. So Lucien spell cleaves to escape Hybern's magic and protect Elain during the cauldron scene. Now, Feyre taps into that to cleave the wards, to allow her people, the Night Court people, to escape the cauldron scene, right? She mentions the white light cleaving the wards. Lucien, white light flared, and then a scrape was heard, and then he was stalking toward Elain. It's spell cleaving.
Yeah.
White light is spell cleaving, okay?
Yeah.
So then we flash to them escaping Spring. And they're in the cave for the night.
Okay.
and they're talking, and obviously, you know, they have that whole conversation about, you know, what would you have done if Ianthe hadn't interfered? Would you have just left me there and all that stuff? And they're having their little tiff, and I love that. But then it comes up that he says, I knew you were lying. Like, I knew you had powers and all this. And she was like, he's like, when I saw that light at the Highburn camp, and this is the interesting part that he says, he's like, oh, it was, you know, the same light that my friend from the Dawn Court has.
Yeah.
So he lied about it being from the Dawn Court, which makes me believe that he might know that Helian's his father.
I go back and forth because I see the argument on both sides.
Yeah,
I like the argument of he doesn't know because it adds angst to the story. And if there's a way to make a character suffer longer, I will make a character
He's suffered enough. But also, he's always said to be, you know, the clever fox and the one that sees everything. And so I'm like, how does he not know, especially after he felt himself spell cleave? Like, you kind of got to put 2 and 2 together. Oh, I spell cleaved, and then, oh shit, Feyre spell cleaved, who all of the High Lords gave their powers from. Where'd the power come from? Helian. You know, kind of 2 and 2 type thing. So
it's weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I feel like in math, when Feyre's magic was starting to show itself, Dawn and Day's magic was showing itself very similar. Okay. Because there's that moment where she's very happy and she glows, and that comes from Thiessen. Okay. That's called.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know if I'm right.
But then later on, she glows again and she thinks Helion. Yeah. And it's like,
I think the difference, I'm pretty sure the difference, and I don't know if Sarah J. Maas keeps the continuity in all of the scenes, but I think the difference is that the dawn light is more like golden-y, kind of like the sun, like dawn, and the light from Helion is more whitish.
Okay.
Like a brighter, like this, like blinding sun, you know?
A blinding light.
Yeah. So I was like, But here I was like, Lucien's straight up lying. Like, nobody can convince me that he was being genuine there. And I think Feyre even says that, like, oh, the clever fox or something like that. She kind of notes it there. Yeah. But he's like, yeah, the light that my friend has from Dawn, I knew what you did and all this stuff. And I was like, Lucien.
I think he says it at the end of Math when they first re-arrive back in spring with Tamlin. Tamlin's like doting on her because she's still acting like a coward.
He's staring at her.
Like she's like super scared over what's just gone through her. And he's just like staring at her and going, I've seen that light before from a friend in Dawn. Are you sure it actually did what you're saying it did? You know, something along those lines. I forget exactly.
I don't think I don't know if he actually says anything. I think he stares at her and he looks down at her gloved arm, and then she's like, and so our game begins. And I was like, Feyre! I was like, you can see that tattoo, goddammit. And he knows if he pipes up, you are never gonna let him see Elain. And I love that he brought that into the conversation in Akawar when they escaped, because he's like, I know that if I said anything to Tamlin, you never would have let Elain near me. Like, you never would have let me see her. You would have kept her there, which, hello, hypocrite Feyre. Yeah. But she was like, yeah, I would have. Like, she literally outwardly says, yeah, I would have kept you away from her. So when people are like, oh, he thought the worst of her and he only did this because he thought that, you know, he would never get to see Elain. Well, he was right. She would have kept Elain from him. She said she would have. So I don't blame him for that, because we have a lot of people, you know, calling him a traitor to Tamlin. Like, you know, I'm a Tamlin stan. But for this particular situation, which is why I say context is super important in every scene, you have to take in the context. But in this particular situation, Lucien was almost raped by Ianthe. Yeah. Tamlin was off with, you know, Highburn looking at the wall. Yeah. Things have not been going well in the court, despite Lucien trying to help. Yeah. Jurian was there making rape jokes about Elain, which, again, context, they were with the Highburn twins. He was supposed to be a double agent and act like them. I don't hold that against Jurian, even though it wasn't the best fucking thing to say to a guy that hasn't seen his mate. And so
also, this sounds weird. I do like Jurian. Yeah. I kind of think that Jurian was egging Lucien to leave.
Yes.
Like, he knows Feyre's not there.
Yes.
Because she wants to be there.
I know, yeah.
She has he knows there's no breaking a bait bond.
Yeah.
He knows that she's going to go back. He knows her plans. He knows.
And he's made now. Yeah. He's made from the cauldron too. So what power does he have? Like,
so I am 100% of the belief that Jurian is egging Lucien on so that when Feyre finally brings the spring court down, Lucien has no desire
part of it,
and he has to go and be with the person he's supposed to be with. So by Jurian constantly being like, "Oh, Elain,
egging him on,
go."
Yeah.
Leave.
Yeah.
Get out of this court before Hybern does something to you.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, like if Lucien's bloodline is as strong and powerful as it is, Drian's gonna not want that child near this person.
Yeah.
Like once Hybern got on Prithian land, Lucien wasn't on Prithian land.
Mm.
And I'm not saying that Hybern would go looking for him, but like,
well, I have a little theory there, but before I delve into that real quick, my point was Lucien had every right to leave at that moment.
Yeah.
Not only, again, were their powers stripped by the Fabane that they ingested, but he had every right to, one, know his mate at least. He never even met her officially. He only protected her during the Cauldron scene. He doesn't really know her. And he says, like, oh, I just want to meet her. Like, I want to know her, like, once, just to know if she's worth fighting for, you know? Like, he just wanted to meet her, period. But with everything going on and Ianthe still being there and all that stuff, he had every right to leave at that point. So I will never, disgruntle Lucien for leaving at that point, even though I know there was no possible way at all in the situation where he could have let Tamlin know, because they weren't in the same proximity even at that point. We don't know.
They weren't even meshing as a friendship.
It was all bad. Everyone was fighting. Like, so I don't blame Lucien for leaving at that point, even though it is sad that, okay, his best friend did kind of leave at his lowest. His only friend that he had left. So I do see both sides of that. But I will never call Lucien, oh, he's a traitor to Tamlin, or he betrayed him, or like, he didn't. Lucien has every right, just as much as, Thera did and Tamlin did and Nesta did. He has every right to go and seek his own happiness, in my opinion. Plus, we don't know when he got to the Night Court. Obviously, I hate that scene. They leave him rotting in clothes for all night, just sitting there. But once he's there, we don't know if he sent letters to Tamlin. We don't know if they've been corresponding, because he still calls Spring his home.
Yeah.
Even in Akafas, he slips up and he says, the Spring Court, and then he's like, not even to Tamlin, but to the court beyond his manor. Like, that was my home for hundreds of years. They took me in, like this, and like she destroyed it. And this is what I will hate Feyre for, is the fact that when she mind-fucked Ianthe after the whole hand thing, and she made Ianthe go back, she basically tells Ianthe to sow rumors that they were all letting her get attacked by the Hybern twins. And so when Lucien comes back from, I don't know, I think it's the library or something, I forget. But when he comes back and they have another conversation, he's like, I can't go back there because they believe all the lies that you sowed, and they believe me to be complicit in their downfall.
Yeah.
Like, they hate me now.
Yeah.
And I hate her for that so much, because it's like, what has Lucien ever done to you?
Yeah.
Except literally save your life.
Yeah.
And people will make the argument, oh, he was complicit in locking her in the house and letting her starve. First of all, you can't shove food down someone's throat. You can offer it to them, and that's all you can do is keep offering. They had dinners. Feyre would sit at dinners and purposely not eat. Like, they couldn't cram it down her throat, first of all. And as for the shielding thing, like Lucien said, at this point, he's not a High Lord. His power was not strong enough to take off wards that Tamlin put up. So all he could do was try to mediate the situation, which is what he tried to do. He stayed with Feyre for like 5 minutes talking to her after Tamlin leaves down the drive. And he's like, please just give us a little bit of time. We're really trying to heal.
And he even says, like, I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to calm down or something.
I'll keep trying to talk to him.
I'm gonna talk to him, because he knows what Tamlin just did.
Yes.
He can't break that ward.
Yes.
That's where, like, he does not fully know what his powers are.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So
he didn't. This is why I'm like, okay, maybe he doesn't know Helian's his dad. But I think he didn't know. And I think it only changed when he realized he spell cleaved. I think that is the moment that he realized Helian was his father. I don't think he knew before. I think he knew after that happened. So when this happens in Akamath, he has no idea he can spell cleave.
Yeah.
But I'll make the argument, especially with the Nesta haters, who are like, they didn't trap her in a house. There were steps she could have taken. I was like, okay, you're going to sit there and be ignorant. Let's be ignorant for 2 seconds. Let's compare this, okay? They knew she was too sickly to do 10,000 stairs. That's why they put her in the sky house, because they knew she was too sickly to do the 10,000 stairs. You want to compare? Let's compare this to Feyre. Feyre now has all the powers of the High Lords, has her spell cleaving power. If Nesta can just walk down the 10,000 stairs, Feyre can just spell cleave the wards.
Yeah.
But neither of them could. That was the whole entire point of this.
Because at that point in time, Feyre still
Yeah, she didn't know her powers.
She didn't know her powers, you know?
And Nesta was too sickly.
And Nesta was too sickly.
And they will hate when I make that. That's not the same because Nesta had autonomy and did it. No, she didn't.
Yeah.
No, she didn't.
Yeah.
But it drives me mad. And I'm like, you guys even know. I don't care that Tamlin shielded her in the house. Oh my God, he shielded her in the house and that's so abusive. Again, context.
Yes. So
Hybern was sending the hordes to kidnap her.
Yes.
To slice her open and steal the powers of the High Lords to win the war.
And she even threatened Tamlin that if you don't take me, I'm still going to go.
Yeah.
Of course he's going to lock you up.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it was a good choice. Obviously, it was a panicked reaction of
PTSD.
To put her in the house with wards so strongly around the house that she can't get in she can't get out and nobody can get in. Because you don't see Lucien walk back into that house. Like, until Moore breaks the spell that was...
I will say, unfortunately, Lucien does say, oh, everyone can get in and out, just not you. So I was like,
oh, okay. Maybe
Lucien. I was like, Lucien, first of all, foot and mouth syndrome. Why would you even bring that up? You're going to make her more upset. That was not comforting in the least.
No.
But he was like, back. Oh, shit. Why did I say this? So I was a little upset that he said that. But, like, the thing is, it's like, I will always compare that.
So in a mean way to her.
No, he doesn't say it in a mean way. He's just like,
He just says.
But like I compare the Nesta and Feyre thing with the house, I will also compare, Feyre's reaction there to, what me and my dad, he works for the T, so my dad has a lot to do with the trains, right? So he has to I've mentioned this, but he has to tell people when their kids jump in front of the train and die and all that stuff. Horrible job, but regardless. So I will always compare this scene of Feyre saying, I'm going anyway, I don't care, to okay, if you had a family member that you really loved and you knew they weren't doing well mentally and they weren't eating and they, were so weak that they couldn't control their limbs. Like with Feyre, she was a new Fae. We saw her struggle with how much longer her arms and legs were. We saw her struggle with her newfound strength and with unable to control it. So I'm like, all right, if she went and she has no control over her body or any of that, it is like allowing one of your mentally ill family members to openly tell you, I'm going to go jump in front of a train. Yeah. Are you going to say, okay, I'll allow you to go? Mm-hmm. No, you're going to keep them in the house. You're going to lock them in the house.
Yeah.
Or, send them somewhere where they can't escape to get help. Mm-hmm. A mental health facility. This is, I don't understand how people are not seeing it like this, because he's literally preventing her from getting killed again for good this time.
Yeah. And it's frustrating.
It's so frustrating.
It's so, you pointed out, and it's just they just can't understand.
I know.
There's a difference between Tamlin in math and Tamlin in war.
Yes.
And all the wrong things that Tamlin did in math are not there for Tamlin in war, which means that he knows how he went about protecting Feyre wasn't the best way.
He tells her that when she comes back.
Yeah.
She literally plays Rhys's rape victim, which I will never condone. That was disgusting. Yeah. And I will never forgive her for that, just like the Lydia thing. But this was worse. This was way worse.
Yeah.
Because you pretend that Rhys assaulted you, not only physically, but mentally, that he forced you to do physical things with him, preying on Tamlin's fear of that, because he saw him do it under the mountain nightly. Prey on that, get him to take you back to Spring, which Tamlin never forced her back to Spring. She's the one that told Hybern break the bond, not Tamlin. Tamlin only backed her up on that, thinking that, Rhys had actually done this shit to her. So he believes her as a victim. They get back to Spring, and one of Feyre's first quotes that tick me off is, the fact that they could ever think that Rhys would even do that to me. I'm getting revenge on that, if only for that.
Yes. Yeah.
Are you kidding me right now?
Well, I mean, it even plays into, what is it? So even when Lucien leaves Spring to go to Night Court, and he's being bombarded with what he thought Night Court was is not what he thought it was.
Well, Valaris anyway.
Yeah.
The one city.
and Feyre's she's proud over like surprising him. And I'm like,
Yes.
he even asked her one time in the caves, and this is the male you want to be with?
Yes.
And it's like,
Yes.
well, because
I had as little choice in that as I did the dancing. The kiss, when they were talking about the forced kiss. He's like, and yet this is the male you now love.
Yeah, this is the male you now love.
What?
And it's like, I'm just like, Feyre, you cannot be mad at people for believing the tale that you told. Like, it's just
because
not.
they saw it in person live with their own eyes nightly for 3 fucking months.
Yes.
Obviously, they're gonna believe you. I hate her so much for that. You have no idea. And then, oh, I have blood rubies in summer, so we're gonna go where the bounty's on your head. What? And then the way that Sarah, I swear, if I was from the Autumn Court, I would have been filled with fire, because the way that Sarah makes Lucien say, "Oh, you're the better friend to me than I ever was."
Oh my God, I hate that line.
What?
I have.
When? Literally fucking when?
Why?
When?
Why is that line in this goddamn book? Because
why is it there?
Nowhere
Lucien.
in the book, nowhere in the rest of the book does Feyre act better than Lucien does to her.
Never. In any of the books.
In any of even the future books, Cass and Sif, Lucien is 10 times better than Feyre the entire time to her.
Oh, you're friends with humans now? I'm sorry, were you not a human when he befriended you?
Yeah. But like, there are things that Sarah has Lucien say, and I'm just like, Sarah, why did you have him say it that way?
Like, Sarah, let me treat the baby right.
Yeah. Like when in math, when Lucien finally finds Feyre in the woods, he's like, "I've been hunting you." And the Lucien haters use it. They use that line to hate on Lucien. They're like, "Why is he hunting her?
We've been hunting for you, and I caught your scent." And why do you think they're trying to save her from the Night Court, where they have no idea Valaris exists, only Hewn City, where everyone's tortured? Like,
this context. Okay, so here's the context. I was actually talking to a Court of Thought on Tumblr.
Yes, I love her. She
wrote something recently, and I got into a conversation with her about it. And she actually wrote something really amazing on the replies to me. She's like, "I love that SJM made Lucien a hunter and a tracker." And I'm like, that explains why he used the word hunt for Feyre, because that's what he does.
Yeah.
He hunts and he tracks. That's what he's really good at. He tracked down a bog where it took Tamlin days to find.
Yes.
Okay. And we don't know how close that bog was to them in Tar. We just know Lucien sensed it. Okay. And told Tamlin about it. And then Tamlin took days to find.
Can I also mention, which, oh my God, I forget. I think it was Eka that brought this up on the podcast, and I go, "Oh my God, that is such a good point." But she said, Feyre asks Lucien in book 1 how to track a Suriel. And obviously he tells her the whole chicken thing or whatever. But I'm like, how would Lucien know unless he has once
done it,
tracked a Suriel?
Yeah.
And so then she was like, did he trap a Suriel before to ask about his parentage?
Yeah. That would be interesting.
Which I was like, oh,
there's like so much backstory. But Lucien's book.
But also but also the fact that
it's gonna have so much. It's gonna have so many flashbacks.
I know, I need it. But like the fact that the Suriel also speaks in riddles, and like, I think Lucien is clever, but I don't know if he's a riddle guy. We never really saw him do any riddles. So I was like, maybe he caught a Suriel and he was just like, "What the hell is this? I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like, can you give it to me straight?" And the Suriel's just like, with all the riddles. And he's like, "God damn it, just tell me if I'm right."
And now he's married to a riddle maker.
Which is why it's
he has to get really good at figuring out riddles to understand what his wife is talking about.
That's why I thought that theory was hilarious, because I was like, it goes with the line where they literally say, "Oh, the mother has a sense of humor." So I was like, if he's terrible with the Suriel's riddles, the mother's like, "Riddle Queen is your mate." I love it. I love it so much. Oh my God. But yeah, I'm like, there's not one singular instance of Feyre being a better friend to Lucien than he was to her ever.
No. He bent over backwards for her. He has scars on his body for her. He had Rhys get him on his knees twice. This is not someone who. It's so frustrating.
It's so enraging.
Yeah.
But we also have, like you said, he has scars on himself from under the mountain from, he told her, go left during the worm trial.
Yeah.
Got lashed for that. Literally, she made Tamlin lash him as hard as he could until he was unconscious for 2 days.
Yeah.
For that. He refused to give her name to Amarantha. And, Lucien knows that this is just a human myth. But he also knows how important it was to Feyre that her belief was, you can't tell a high fairy your name or then they will entrap your soul. Like, she mentions that when she first comes to the manor. So he knows this is like a human thing that she wholeheartedly believes. And does he make fun of her for it? No. What does he do? She doesn't want to give her name to Amarantha. He refuses to give her name to Amarantha. He didn't just give it up, even though he knows that it's a foolish little myth, right? And what does she do? Rhys hold his mind.
Yeah.
Rhys could have killed him. We saw him hold Brutius's mind and then mind melt him, kill him.
Yeah.
So, and it even says
we saw the pain on Lucien's face, and we know from earlier in Tar what having Rhys's claws.
Yeah, she was almost
feels like. Like Feyre almost was almost sick to her stomach in the dining room from just having Rhys slowly, like slightly touch her mind. And he was fully in his mind, and he was
in it.
He was
rigid. He couldn't talk. He couldn't do anything. Yeah. And yet Feyre even says that Lucien, there was something in Lucien's eyes where she knew he was fully prepared to die in that moment.
To hold her name. Yeah.
For her.
Yeah.
Knowing that this was a stupid human myth, but knowing that she believed it to her core. And that's who Lucien is. He goes with the morals of whoever he's dealing with. And this is what makes him a great emissary.
Yes. So people never recognize why Lucien was put into the second task. It wasn't just a punishment for what he did in the first task or a punishment to Tamlin. He gave Feyre a blanket.
And the cloak.
Gave Feyre a cloak or a blanket that he stole from a guard. Right after, when he finally was healthy enough to go see her, because he was trying to get to see her, but he was so hurt he couldn't go help her.
Yeah, that was the first time he visits her cell. He gives her the cloak, and she's
it's her face. Time.
Oh, okay,
because
second
she was freezing or something.
Was this the same time that her face was broken and then he fixed her nose? Or is that the second time?
Her.
Right, okay.
That was his first time going to heal her.
There's another thing. He healed her.
Yeah. So what happens is, Rhys has already made the bargain with her.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But he's
yelling at her.
He only fixed her arm so that the infection in her arm wouldn't kill her. But she was still I think she was still really cold or something like that.
Yes.
And finally Lucien showed up.
Yeah, with the cloak.
And she was mad at him because she had to make a bargain with Rhys because Lucien didn't show up early enough. And he's like, I was
unconscious for 2 days.
I wasn't allowed to heal.
You should have known that I would come for you.
Yeah. Oh! But it's also understandable, he didn't know. He also admits he didn't know how fragile a human life is, that a broken bone could do this to a human. So he also, which is why he stays to heal at the end of war.
Yes.
He changes his entire life around because of Feyre.
Yeah.
But he brought a cloak for her. He stole it from a sleeping guard outside the dungeon, gave it to her, and then now he's chained in the second task.
Yeah, right.
So I was like, it's because of the cloak. So he keeps getting in trouble because of the things that he's doing for Feyre.
And also Amarantha gets a 2-for-1 here because not only is it just punishing Lucien for doing these things, but it's also punishing Tamlin because she knows, again, this is the only friend he has left alive. Yeah. I'm going to use him as much as I can to try to get him to be my consort.
Yeah.
And Lucien says in the beginning, which I always say that I don't believe him because he is a clever fox and what we know of his bloodlines being super strong. Lucien says in the beginning, he goes to her cell and he heals her nose. And he's like, oh, I'm going to keep some of the markings so they don't, whatever. Don't know that I healed you. Yeah. And so she's like, I thought, Amarantha strips everyone's powers when they're under the mountain or whatever. And he's like, oh, well, she gave me back a fraction to entice Tamlin to be her consort. And I was like, Lucien, out of everybody, she is not giving you your powers back. I don't care whether it's an offensive power, a defensive power. She is not giving you power back. I feel like Amarantha could only take away their offensive magic.
Yeah.
So I feel like he didn't have his fire and he did have his healing. Now, the thing with this is that nobody else even had their defensive magic either. The not the big one. They didn't have anything at all. Yeah. None. And so I was like, it's weird that Lucien kept his healing power. Mm-hmm. And then the next, the next task is the lentil thing. Or no, the lentil thing was Reese. The next task is the mop water on the floor, the dirty mop water on the floor. And, you know, they're like, oh, clean the floor pristine with dirty water or whatever. And what happens but Lucien's mom
she comes and she cleans it up. Yeah.
Lucien's mom has some power.
Yeah.
And Lucien has some power. Nobody else has any sort of power at all.
I have so many questions about this curse that Amarantha placed on the High Lords, that she stole their power. And
well, it was their corpse too, I think.
Tamlin explains it as there's a blight. There's a blight on the land that everyone's magic is affected. And I'm like, but she only stole the High Lord's magic. So is the High Lord's magic connected to the land that also gives the magic to the people of the land?
No, she so she did take the High Lord's magic, but she also took the court's magic too, I think. Like the people's magic too, I think.
But not all the people go to the party. So like Mor, Amren, Cassian, and Azriel all have their powers? Or were they also affected because their High Lord was affected?
So here's the thing that I don't understand about the party or the curse. So if Amarantha wanted everybody under the mountain, maybe it would have been too obvious that she was planning to ensnare them. Who knows? But we get from even Vivian and Callias, like Vivian wasn't there. Only Callias went. And then he threw out the last dregs of his power to her, which how does that work? Because they weren't married or mated at the time. They were just best friends. Threw out his power to her, I guess, to take over for 50 years. And, you know, she was there. Their army was there. Some of the Winter Court people were there. But yet then we know that Nuon was under the mountain with Thesan. And, you know, but his general wasn't. His partner wasn't.
Yeah.
And then we know that, you know, Tamlin and all of his court, I guess, were taken under the mountain. But Alice escaped somehow. And then we have, for the inner circle, my thoughts on the inner circle is just that Amarantha had no idea they existed, because in terms of her, she was like, oh, Reese's family is dead. Tamlin's father killed them. So she's only thinking, oh, his father, mother, sister are his family and they're dead. I don't think she knew about like his brothers and like his extended family, and I don't think she really cared anyway.
Well, that's poor on her. She's a general of Hybern. If she wanted to take over this entire world,
yeah, she was dumb.
You should know your enemy's inner circle. You should know. So, like, you should know the High Lord. She knows Reese is the High Lord,
and all the royal
High
families.
Lord's head spy. You should know the High Lord's general. You should know the High Lord's second in command of the throne, and you should know the High Lord's like what is emissary.
Yeah,
that's the main. That's the leaders of an entire court. You know,
this is why I say, like,
know this. Like,
I think Sarah tried to make her more villainous and badass, but then, like, in making her more evil, she made her dumb instead of strategic. Because she's like, oh, she's Hybern's general, but then you just have her doing evil shit and like not being strategic.
And it's not like these four people of Reese's are not known, because when Feyre comes back to Spring Court after her first visit to the Moonstone Palace, she mentions the names.
And he's like, oh, yeah, them.
And Lucien and Tamlin actually reacted.
They're like, ugh, them.
Yeah. Or no, they actually like sat up or something, I feel like. They actually
straightened.
They straightened or something. They had a reaction to the names that she dropped when she said the names, Azriel and Cassian. Yeah. So they know who those two people are.
And Tamlin wasn't shocked that they were at the meeting either.
Yeah.
You know, he knew them. And because Reese says, you know, my brothers and my family didn't approve of my friendship with Tamlin. So, like, they knew about his friendship with Tamlin before it even got blown up.
Yeah.
So I was like, so you have brothers and then you have this friend, but, like, you're all not going to hang out together. Like, these are the things that, you know, Sarah doesn't really follow through with, like, because they don't make sense. Like, they'll make sense, like, okay, you can throw it out there, but you need to follow through. Like, you need to explain some of this stuff, because without explanation, it doesn't really make sense.
Which is like where Eris. Okay, so
yeah.
This is why. Okay, how to put this into words?
Right.
Okay, so we know Reese is High Lord of Night.
Yeah.
And these are his four people that help him run Night Court. Okay, they go to meetings with him. When Eris becomes powerful, becomes High Lord, they're not going to know Eris's
inner circle,
because they don't know it already, because Eris keeps it such a secret. So this is like the part where it's like Eris, it makes sense that nobody knows Eris's inner circle.
Yeah.
It does not make sense why Amarantha would not know Reese's inner circle. Like,
unless again, Reese was lying and he could Daemati her. Because then what does he say later, which me and Antoinette harp on all the time, is that, oh, I, convinced her. I made the sex so good and I convinced her that I actually loved her. So I'm like, that wording is really weird because you claim that you're her sex slave, but really you're a sex worker. But then somehow she believes that you actually love her. You're telling me you didn't demati her and you can't get into her head?
Yeah.
But then there's people she doesn't know about that she should know about and all this shit. It's just so weird. And then the fact that he's just like, oh, I did it for my people and I did it to protect Valaris, which comes back around another time when he's like, oh, well, Valaris has been hidden since its inception 5,000 years ago by my ancestor. So I'm like, Amarantha didn't even know it existed. What are you talking about? I did it for my city.
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Exactly. No.
And then he lets Amarantha slaughter half of Hewn City. And I hate the scene when he's describing this because he's like, oh, I was so devastated. Oh, I bet you were. I bet you were devastated that she killed half of Hewn City. Yeah. When have you ever had any compassion for them?
No.
First of all. None. And then when you go back after Under the Mountain and you murder every Illyrian that bowed to her out of fear the same way you did?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
No, I have so many issues with that. I have so many issues with the whole entire Rhys and Valaris. We need to have just a Valaris episode with us. I was on a tangent the other day on Facebook with someone, just explaining why Valaris is the bane of my existence. It is literally the city of hippies.
Yeah.
Just the city of hippies and artists, and I just cannot be on top of them. But I want to go back to something with Lucien.
Yes. And then we'll get into the whole mate stuff.
We'll try. Finally. We keep going on a little bit.
Finally, I know, right?
Okay. So my big thing with Lucien, you were talking about, we're going a while back. Yeah. You were talking about like Lucien and Tamlin at their relationship in war and the stuff with him leaving Tamlin in such a dark place during war. Yes. And I say this all the time in our chats and in other places. It is okay for someone to put a boundary line down.
Yes.
Especially someone who did not have a boundary line and his space kept getting invaded.
Yes. It is not Rhys that is the self-sacrificial one. It's Lucien.
Yeah.
Always, for everyone.
It's okay that Lucien finally said, I'm putting a boundary line, and if it gets crossed again, I can't stay.
Like Ianthe almost raping him was his final straw.
Well, even Tamlin listening to Ianthe to punish that sentry was his last straw. Tamlin killing the sentries that were on guard duty when Feyre went missing. That was like the first gasping moment for him.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things like
I always say that was really the only bad Tamlin moment because and we don't even know the context around it really. We only really have what Lucien says. But in terms of the guard that was whipped, like Lucien I have an issue with the whole thing. Not only does Feyre set that whole thing up.
Yeah.
He admits it and then she's like, I curled the memory up in his mind and I held his tongue so he couldn't tell anyone he was innocent. So like Tamlin was in between a rock and a hard place there. He really didn't have a choice because he didn't have any proof of his innocence. Yeah. And, Ianthe has never showed how much of a snake she is in front of Tamlin. He's only seeing, oh, this was my childhood friend when I was a young kid, struggling in this court with my father. She was my friend. And she's never showed him any reason to doubt her because the only time she's a snake is in front of Lucien and Feyre when Tamlin isn't there. And they never even tell him that, They never go to him and tell him, look, Ianthe did this to me. Ianthe did that to me. And with Lucien, I feel like that's a big part of his pride. But with the whole whipping the sentry thing, like Lucien says after the fact, when it's right before I think they're attacked by it's right before the Hybern twins come and they see the children of the blessed and they want to attack the children of the blessed. But they're sitting like knee to knee in the tent. And Lucien says, he's talking about the bargain from Math, and he's like, me and Tamlin were trying for months to try to figure out how to get you out of the bargain safely. And, I took a bunch of trips to the day court libraries.
Yeah.
I love that, by the way. Wish we got to see it. And I asked everyone I knew and all of this stuff. But then also snuck in there, which is why, again, I say Lucien is the self-sacrificial one, is he tells Feyre that anyone that even attempts to come between a magical bargain like that will be struck down and killed by
Yeah.
the magic of the lands.
Yeah.
So he was still trying to solve, they were both still trying to solve this bargain, knowing there was a chance that the magic could kill them for it.
Mhm.
So Tamlin had a bargain with Hybern to let them look at the wall, to let them into his court. After the cauldron scene, when Hybern openly, tells them, your dear friend Ianthe, told us where to find your sisters, all this stuff, that was the moment where Tamlin, as a military person, as someone who is usually strategic and who notices everything, which Feyre has said multiple times, realized, oh shit, she betrayed me, and now I'm stuck with her because Hybern has claimed her. Hybern claimed Ianthe in that scene.
Yeah.
So Tamlin did not have a choice to kick Ianthe out when she started, after she did that, right?
Yeah.
All he could do is, one, play the game, because if Rhys can wear a mask, so can Tamlin.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way he liked Ianthe after that.
No.
He was playing the game in front of Feyre, because again, adding layers to this, he thinks truly that Feyre is still mind-fucked by Rhys, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't want to give too much away. But Hybern had claimed Ianthe. Ianthe was a part of Hybern. Hybern had the bargain with Tamlin. If Tamlin kicked Ianthe out or tried to kick Ianthe out, the magic would have killed him for it, because she was a part of Hybern.
Yeah.
And not only that, but if he treated her badly while she was there, or let her know that he hated her, or that, he wasn't going to stand for her in his court after that fact, or anything, if he made any little misstep to make it seem like he was a double agent, a spy, which is what he was for Hybern at the time, because again, remember, he was spying on them just as much as they were spying on him for the courts, for this war. If he made any little misstep and Ianthe figured out that he was a double agent and not actually, willingly working with them, which is why I hate Feyre thinking that he was, what would she have done? Again, she would have gone right to the King of Hybern,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And we know the King of Hybern has no qualms about breaking bargains.
Yeah.
And he would have come in the spring court and killed all of them.
Yeah.
Which is my biggest problem with Feyre. Mm-hmm. Because Tamlin was doing all of this shit, including whipping the guard. Because, again, the land's magic would have struck him dead if he didn't go with basically what Ianthe wanted. Again, because he didn't have proof either, because Feyre wouldn't let him tell her the proof. Stuck between a rock and a hard place, and he would have been fucked either way. And so he was doing this to protect his people. He says, oh, I let Hybern look at the wall. I let him into my court. Why do you think I let them onto my lands and into my home? It was to protect his people. He says, I pushed them all south as like a failsafe to protect his people from them. Yeah. Because what people are forgetting is that everybody knew that Hybern had sacked all those temples for the feet of the cauldron. Everybody knew what the Hybern soldiers did to the citizens of those temples.
Yeah.
So Tamlin knew what Hybern would do to his innocent citizens, who have just survived cannibalism under the mountain.
Yeah.
Cannibalism under the mountain. Lucien mentions in Math how they were shoved into boxes, lightless boxes, and forced to feed on each other.
Yeah.
So he was sparing them from more abuse and trauma and murder by Hybern by being this double agent and letting him on his lands. Mm-hmm. Because Rhys says, oh, and in math, he says, the wall is coming down no matter what any of us do. Hybern's gonna, take down the wall regardless. Yeah. So Tamlin, being that strategist, is like, okay, he can tear down the wall and then rape and kill all my people. Or I can decide to be a double agent, pretend I'm willingly working with him, and let him on my lands willingly, using a bargain to protect my people. Yeah. Which is what he did.
Either way, Hybern was invading spring.
Yes.
No matter what, he was not going to invade summer. He was not going to invade dawn.
Yeah.
He's invading spring because
the wall.
As the wall.
Yeah.
And spring already has a decimated population and already a decimated army because of the 50 years of Amarantha. All of them do. They all have a messed up army and citizens, But he was going to invade spring. End of day. Yeah. The best thing Tamlin could do is try and control that invasion.
Yeah, protect his people as best he could, which is what he did. Which is what people hate him for.
Yeah.
Which is why I get so mad at Feyre when they're like, right before she escapes and she's packing up, and this is also why I hate Alice for helping her.
Yeah.
But she like basically tells Alice, "Oh, I'm gonna reduce this court to rubble," and Alice is like, "You go, girl." I was like, "You fucking traitor."
Yeah.
First of all, what the hell is wrong with you? He saved you and your nephews and protected you that whole time. But regardless of Alice, she goes, she has all her shit in like this, I don't know, backpack, whatever the fuck she brought with her. And she's like, I just need to use my powers now to completely weaken the western border, to entice Hybern to invade them and reduce them to rubble, which is what she does. She fucks with the western border, knowing it would entice Hybern to go against the bargain to not touch Tamlin's people, because let's be real, a villain, when enticed, is always going to kind of go with their original evil, right? Yeah. They're going to feed into what their bigger goal is. Yeah. Regardless of, I promised not to touch your people, but screw it. I want to invade.
Ended up burning all the villages to the ground anyway.
Yeah. So she let him in. She literally let him in through the door, through the western border. And he, you know, hurt his people, reduce the villages to cinders, all this stuff. I love that line in Akawar when he's like, all those people that you wanted to help rebuild, their houses are reduced to cinders. I loved that so much. And then marches his way over and is like, let's go to the summer court now. But now that we're in, now that we accessed Prithian, everything is on the table.
Yeah. And summer court has one of the still best, they have the best naval army. So that's why they attacked Adrieta, you know, to get rid of that naval army, because they needed to get rid of that naval army that would have stopped their naval army from invading the mortal lands once the wall came down, because they didn't use their naval army to invade Spring. Yeah. Actually a few pieces.
They just winnowed. They just winnowed right there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they had their naval army waiting to land on the western border of the mortal lands to invade the mortal lands. So they wanted to take care of Adrieta. And the only way they were going to do that was to like make them nervous. First of all, that now there's Hybern soldiers on the western
end Farah.
Of Spring. And so he moved all his soldiers down there, which allowed them to invade his port.
His port, yeah. So. And you know what? I give so much credit to Tarquin, and I feel like he's so underrated. I give so much credit to Tarquin there, because he is the only person in the entire series, other than Lucien and Fast, but that's really for himself. But Tarquin's really the only person that has chewed her ass out so thoroughly for the shit that she did. He straight up points it out. He's like, you weaken their border, let them dock in his harbors, and triple their way into my court.
Yeah.
You did this. And he goes, you did this. And I loved Sarah J. Maas for that part, because I was like, thank you for spelling it out for all these people who do not know how to critically read and do not know how to put context into scenes. Because they're just thinking, oh, Tamlin deserved his court to be crumbled. Tamlin deserved the revenge. And okay, but it's not just being petty toward Tamlin, and it's not just revenge toward Tamlin for anything he did to her. You killed an entire court of innocent people, and then half of a city that has never done anything to you because of those actions that you took.
Yeah.
Knowing there was a war coming up, you openly told us that you knew you were going to destroy his army.
Yep.
Of an army that you needed for a war. And this just goes to the fact that Farah should not be a leader. She doesn't know anything. She is not good with war. She's not good with politics. She doesn't know what she's doing. And so Rhys praising that really pissed me off when he visited Tamlin in Akafast, when he's like, isn't she so clever?
No, she's not.
No, she's not. She was dumb as fuck.
You got no information, no useful information from what she did.
None.
You got more useful information from Tamlin showing up at the High Lord meeting than you did from what Farah did. Because even when you finally did see the armies of Hybern, you were like, that's more than what the twins said they had.
Yes.
So the twins were playing them the entire time.
Yeah.
You know, so she did not bring any good information home with her. No. Lucien had no information to bring home with him. And that's not his fault. He was not in the loop.
Yeah.
He was not in the loop, you know?
No. Yeah.
So that's not his fault either. You know, this was Farah's decision. Rhys supported the decision. It was a shit decision.
A shit decision. And I also want to point out, which I have on the chat a million times. I'm going to repeat myself 100 times here. But the line where, and I forget exactly what scene it's in at this moment, but I've done screenshots of it. Like I can see the screenshot, but I can't see the scene in my head right now. But there's a line that Farah says when she's in the Spring Court in Akawar. I think it might have been during one of the dining room scenes with the twins and Jurian, but don't quote me on that. And she says, like, oh, I could slip into Tamlin's mind as easily as I could slip into Lucien's to see if what he's telling me is the truth.
Yeah.
But what a dark place that would be. There's no way I want to do that.
Oh my God. That goes into the whole entire how Rhys views going into anybody's Lucien's mind.
Yeah.
When Feyre in Math says, "Oh, I invaded, I accidentally slipped into someone's mind," and he's like, "Oh, whose?" And she said, "Lucian." And he's like,
"What an awful place to be!
What a sad place to be." That would be the sad. Like he says something really demeaning, and it's like, dude, why are you so pompous over other people's?
And then he laughs about it. He's like, "What a depressing place to be."
Yes, that's what he said. That's what he said. And it's like, well, why? And so now she has adopted the same callousness about other people's minds. And it's like, do you know the power you have? Like you can find out exactly the thought process of everyone. Like
she would have known that he was a double agent then, and she would have known why he was doing this, why he had to be civil with Ianthe, why he had to da-da-da-da-da.
I've said this before too. If Rhys had just invaded Lucien's mind in the forest of Math, they would have known why Lucien was so desperate to bring Feyre home, because he was the only reason Tamlin had not gone to Hybern yet. His no was the last one that Tamlin was waiting for.
And this is why I say Lucien is my favorite, but I will admit when he does the wrong things for the right reasons, because he's a cinnamon roll, and he is like Elain, which again is a mate mirror, which we'll get into, but like Elain, he is a peacemaker, he is a fixer. And that is his whole personality. He just wants everyone to be happy, and he wants to do whatever he can to fix things to make that happen. So he took the ring pieces when Feyre left, and nobody told, which is, I have an issue with this with Alice and everyone at the thing that never told Tamlin the truth, but we don't have their POVs. But Lucien got to the manor first. He took the ring pieces, never told Tamlin that he had them. Obviously, Tamlin is going to think, oh, she was stolen. She didn't leave of her own volition, because if she had left of her own volition, she would have taken the engagement ring off and left it for me.
Yeah.
Lucien never told him the ring was there.
But the ring melted.
I know. Well, it melted into pieces. He picked up the pieces.
Yeah.
And he hid them.
But he even then, like, Lucien has no idea that she left on her own volition. He just sees a melted ring. He has no clue what that can mean. He knows. Yeah. He is the only one admitting that she has more power than anybody knows. Yeah. And she needs to train it. Which is, again, why I'm like, Feyre, what are you saying that Lucien abandoned you? How many times in that dining room did Lucien argue with Ianthe and Tamlin over training you with your power? Yes. He wanted you to train. He was advocating for you.
Yeah. But see, the thing is, I don't know, maybe I'm putting too much intelligence onto him, but I think Lucien is really, really smart. So the thing is, if he saw the ring pieces there, I know that he didn't have the exact facts of what happened, but you had to think that a couple things had to go through his mind. Was she stolen? Did she have a panic attack like Tamlin? Or did she leave by herself? And he had to have thought, he's seen Tamlin blow up when he's panicked. He's seen things happen by accident. So he could have thought, all right, she was taken, or all right, she melted the ring, kind of panicked, and then left. So I feel like he could have at least discussed it with Tamlin. I think that's probably where the root of my problem lies with this, is that he didn't tell him that he found the ring pieces. They didn't discuss what that could have meant, the different options that could have meant, because, they just assumed, oh, she was taken, which I understand wholeheartedly. But I feel like if they had a conversation that the ring pieces were there and that it was destroyed, that they could have come to the conclusion maybe she freaked out, the powers went on the fritz, and she didn't want to be here and she left. And I feel like him hiding that just kind of not really took the choice away from him, but kind of took the nuance away from Tamlin at least thinking that could be an option. And then with the Hybern thing, like you said, where he shows up and he sees Feyre, and Feyre rips wings out of her body, and she's like, you think you know darkness? I know darkness. And which I was like, Feyre, this is Lucien fucking Vincera. You've been in his head. Endless guilt and sadness. You think he doesn't know dark times? Yeah. Be so for real right now. I hated that line. I hated that line, and people praise it so much. But there was like, then he went back and he tells her, like, yeah, I told Tamlin, go ahead with the plan. And he says, plan. Because again, double agents. Yeah. Which she didn't want to see in Tamlin's head, because she wanted just the fuel to destroy him.
But I feel like also Lucien was just broken down, leading up to him finally telling Tamlin yes to this moment in time, And I think that's just part of Lucien's character of he's always fighting against a brick wall.
Mm-hmm.
He is someone who has he has very good morals.
Yes.
And very good ethics. And he can lead.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not the leader.
Yes. He's like Bryce. He can do it, but he doesn't want to do it.
No, he wants to do it. He just doesn't let's look at spring. He is pretty much the delegate of running spring court.
Currently.
The problem is he just doesn't have the status. So he still has to talk to the High Lord.
I know, right?
Like, I know what to do, but I have to talk to this asshole.
I
in
know.
the process.
It's like, God damn it, I need permission.
Why do I
Mom,
need
sign my permission slip. He's like, I can do this, but I have to ask you first.
I have to. Like,
and I feel like people are so mean because they're like, why is he asking Tamlin to be nice to Feyre? And it's like, it's not being nice to Feyre. It's like, Tamlin's the leader. He has to ask him. Like, it's not a choice he's making.
Yeah.
Like, it's so ridiculous. But
so here we have Lucien knowing the right thing to do, but being surrounded by the people who are not making the right choices.
Mm-hmm.
But the people not making the right choices are the fucking people in charge.
I know. And they're like, oh, you'll get it one day. And he's like, no, I know what to do now. I'm grown up. I swear. So, okay, Firelink, be quiet.
So he's just constantly beating against a brick wall of, can we please do it this way? Can we please?
Yes.
We don't need to do it. He's constantly beating against a brick wall. And at some point his arms hurt and his hands hurt and he's bloody.
Yeah.
And it's like the wall won't come down.
Yes.
And he just sits against it and he just goes, fine, we'll just do it away.
Well, you know? I'll just fix it after instead.
I'll deal with it afterward, you know?
And there's a quote that he says to Feyre about, which is why I do love how Sarah kept him with this energy in Akafas later on. But he says that, you know, you don't know everything Tamlin was going through. You don't know how hard we had it, especially after you left. You don't know what the court, you know, was dealing with and struggling with. And like, this is why we asked you, please, we need time. And then things will loosen, things will get better. And you didn't want to give us time and all this stuff. Well, and he says that he hid the ring because Tamlin was already going through so much that he knew it would just destroy him further. And he did not, here's the quote from Akafas, he didn't want to beat a man while he was down.
Yeah.
He didn't want more stuff piled onto him when he was already so struggling, which is why he hid the ring. So I was so happy that when, you know, Rhys decided to do that in Fas, and we know all that shit that he did to him and said to him in Akafas, I loved how Lucien went to Feyre and he was like, your mate should have known better than to beat a male when he's down.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, see, you do that, Lucien, because you're a good person, but not everyone is like you.
But that also comes back to Lucien's life.
Mm-hmm.
He's watched his father beat his brothers down when they're already down.
And
he's
mother
watched himself be beaten down when he's already down. And he's watched his mother be beaten down when she's already down. Mm-hmm. He doesn't believe that's something you're supposed to do, you know, and that's his morals, that's his ethics, you know, that's his level, that's his boundary in the line. I see you're already in the dirt. I'm not going to push you further into the dirt.
Yeah. He's going to try to dig you out as much as he can.
As much as he can.
I also really adore that because we kind of get the story. Obviously, we don't get the full context or anything, but we know the story that, you know, Eris sent the letter, whatever. But Tamlin showed up after the anonymous letter. He showed up to save this young female from his evil brothers, from his evil father, from death. And I think I love that because I think Tamlin saw a lot of his upbringing and a lot of himself in Lucien back then. And that's why he saved him, because he's like, okay, I had no one to save me. I have the ability to make sure that what happened to me doesn't happen to this kid. This guy, whatever, he was probably young. So Tamlin takes him in, you know, makes him part of his court, makes him his emissary to give him all of these protections, and he builds him back up. And he's like, oh, you really have a skill for talking, and I don't. Will you be my emissary? You really have a skill for this. You really have a skill for that. And so Lucien remembers this. Like, Lucien knows what Tamlin did for him. And that's part of why he's so loyal to him, but that's also why he won't say an ill will ill word against him when he's this far down, because he knows what it's like to be there. And he knows that when he was there, Tamlin built him up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've had it where someone hurt me deeply, and no matter how deeply they hurt me, and yeah, we're not friends anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I have not spoken ill.
Yeah.
Like, I've told the truth of what the person
what
has
happened.
done, but at no point in time, like, I know that we had mutual friends that then also had a falling out with that same person, and they turned to me and was like, do you know this happened? And I'm like, I'm really sorry that your friendship went, that your friendship's no longer.
But now you know why.
And I don't even say that. And then I just cut them off because of how bad it was. How much, like, they all took this person's side, you know? And
100%.
I dealt with a lot, you know? So
100%.
when they finally, years later, was like, oh, we had a falling out, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm really sorry that happened. And that was where I ended it, you know? At no point in time did I go on a rant to this person or to be like, I was justified, all that stuff. Because in my head, I'm just going, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't need to do that. And on top of that, the years that we did have that was really good, they were really good.
Yeah. We'll always have that. You know, we'll always have those memories.
Yeah.
You know?
So I don't think Lucien hates Tamlin. I don't think Lucien's not looking to have a friendship with Tamlin.
Yeah.
Like, he's there. He didn't say no to Rhys. You know, he could have easily said, no, I'm not going back to the Spring Court. But he loves the Spring Court.
Oh my God, that line in Akasif when Rhys is oh my God, I love it. When Rhys is talking to Azriel and Azriel's like, where's Lucien? We need Lucien for this, and we need to send him and Rhys is like, oh, he's at the Spring Court for Solstice, and Azriel's like, he is? Like, why? What? And Rhys, obviously being Rhys, worded it badly, but then he was like, yeah, because, you know, Tamlin realized that if he didn't ask Lucien, he was going to spend it rotting alone or whatever. But the fact is that, you know, they had a little bit of a falling out. They had a brawl in Akafas, like a literal brawl at Akafas, and Lucien still went to spend the holiday with him, knowing he would be alone.
Yeah.
And I loved that
but
so
then
much.
Rhys had to go and ruin it.
I know.
People don't recognize that, but Rhys ruined it because Lucien's there. Rhys has this conversation with both Feyre and Azriel.
Yeah.
And then Rhys shows up on Tamlin's door. And his third sentence. It's his third sentence out of his mouth. Where's my good friend Lucien?
Yup.
And I was like, you fucking asshole.
Yep.
Literally, the chapter before this, you told Feyre you barely tolerate Lucien. And you just...
He knew it. He
purposely used that line to Tamlin because you know it's going to make Tamlin pissed off at Lucien. Where's my good friend Lucien?
Just like, oh, wasn't my mate so clever? And then he's like, I saw the words land. I was like, you motherfucker. I hate him so much.
But then that also brings us back to Nesta's anger because Nesta feels like Elain has abandoned her and has picked Feyre's side. And it's like, Elain hasn't picked anybody's side. She's living with Feyre because the house is livable and you have pushed her away. But like those words, like Feyre takes it personally that Elain is now with Feyre. So Tamlin, hearing the words, where's my good friend Lucien, instantly goes, Lucien's in bed with fucking Rhys.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's not.
Because now Tamlin's going to think, oh, he's spying on me for Rhys.
Yes.
And it's just going to sow more suspicions, more hatred. Which,
right after that, I mean, that's also the part where Rhys tells Tamlin to go kill himself.
Yeah.
Right after that, the next part we have is from Lucien's point of view, but Lucien talking to Feyre and going, Tamlin kicked me out and he dumped all of my Spring Court belongings on the manor doorstep. Like it was garbage. And that was all because of Rhys.
Was that in Akafas? I thought that was in Akawar.
No, that's
that's
in Frost and Starlight.
Oh, okay.
This is for Solstice.
Oh, yeah, for Solstice. Okay. Yeah,
now in Akasif,
all of his scenes in Fast with Tamlin make me so enraged.
Yeah.
They're awful. And then, he says, "Where's my good friend Lucien?" And then he's like hunting for dinner or whatever. Yeah. And then Rhys in his head is like, ugh, poor Lucien, Tamlin's lackey once again. And I was like, shut up. I'm like, your entire inner circle are your lackeys.
And calls your two brothers dogs. Like, dude, tell her to stop if that's not what you want your friends to be called.
Your brothers, right?
But no, in Sif,
Yeah.
When solstice happens, Lucien comes and spends solstice in spring court. I mean, in night court.
Yeah.
He's already living in spring court for
Mhm.
about a couple of weeks by this point, because it's
Mhm.
just, they announced.
Yeah, I think he's going back and
Kansas.
forth from spring to the
No, he's
Borderlands. Or
no. So what's going on is, prior to solstice,
Mhm.
which is when they were announcing Feyre's pregnancy at Hewn City. Okay,
Mhm.
he
Ugh.
was going between the Mortallands, Spring Court, and Night Court.
Yeah.
Okay, but he was mostly in the Mortallands.
Mhm.
Okay, right before they're
Lucien.
going to announce the. Right, I'm sorry, I have fingers up.
It's fine. Yeah, like anyway.
This is solstice. So right before they go to Hewn City and announce the pregnancy, they decided to tell Lucien he now has to permanently live in spring to make sure Tamlin doesn't have a hissy fit. Okay.
Yeah.
So they completely removed him from portals.
Yeah.
In spring, and then they announced the pregnancy. So he's been living in spring for about 3 weeks or so. Okay, so that he can get accustomed back into running the court, making sure Tamlin doesn't kill people, making sure Tamlin doesn't kill himself.
Yeah.
He's in permanent beast mode.
Yeah.
And
it's the biggest job. Don't die.
And then he decides to spend solstice with Feyre and the family because
Elain
he needs a break.
Elain's there.
The poor boy needs a break.
I know. I was like, oh shit.
He has a right to go to the night court. He works for them. His mate lives there. His friend lives there.
Cassian being like, oh, he effortlessly flows between his job between the three courts, and I was like, you see that, but he is so stressed.
For a man who has so many responsibilities, I think it's stated he's well kept for a man with so much.
Yes.
With so much for doing 3 jobs or something like that. I'm like, oh, I'm happy, Cassian, you had the chance to check him out.
Right.
I love how everyone always checks out freaking Lucien.
Oh, and his flowing ruby hair was flawless. I was like, Cassian, are you okay?
Do you need to go take a moment?
Oh no, hair envy. Oh, he's gonna ask him for his hair care routine.
I just wake up with it.
But then all right, so where I love Lucien and I can also kind of judge some of his actions, I can do the same with Elain. So going back to the Elain and Nesta thing, I do think it was totally wrong of Elain to agree to pack up her belongings and take away her safe space without telling her. I do think that it was wrong that they said, okay, we're destroying her apartment building, so go pack her up. We're sending her to the House of Wind to forcibly train, whatever they told her. They told her the whole story, apparently. But I do not like, and I do not accept that she went behind her back to pack Nesta's things without her consent. I don't like that.
This is where we differ.
I don't like that.
We differ on this part.
Well, because, okay.
I view the House of Wind as Nesta's...
Do not say rehab. I can't. Do not say rehab. I can't.
I do.
We can't bring that up.
She needed to be taken out of her. She was self-destroying.
Yes, I agree.
She put herself in a pit.
Yeah, no, I totally agree that something had to be done. I don't agree with the way that it was handled.
And she was not
way better ways to handle it.
She was not going to do it herself. She was not.
But still, there was better ways to handle it than trapping her with Cassian, who she said she didn't want to be around.
Yeah.
Not literally a house, Feyre. Feyre.
Yeah.
Feyre was even actually, I do give a little bit of credit for Feyre in Arcasif, begrudgingly, because she did tell Rhys to cut it out, and she was crying, and she did, she didn't really want it to come to that.
Yeah.
I do think, which I said on the Antoinette episode, I do think it should have been between the sisters. This had nothing to do with Rhysand. It should have been her sisters trying to figure out how to help heal her. Just those 3. The inner circle that doesn't like Nesta should never have been involved, but I digress.
Yeah, I think plot wise it's just what had to be written. Sometimes
because she loves her IC and they have to be right.
Yeah. Sometimes plot has to happen the way plot has to happen.
Yeah.
It drives me up a wall sometimes because, like me, I've seen things too. There's 100 different ways I would have wrote Rhys. There's 100 different ways I would have wrote Math. I don't like that Rhys didn't just go to the High Lords and be like, "Do you know what Hybern's doing?"
Yeah, shit. Right?
Let's do something before something happens.
Yeah.
We all know that the temples were ransacked. Time for us, all 7 of us, to talk about it.
There was a really amazing TikTok that I saw yesterday, and I'm sorry, I forget who made the TikTok, but I wholeheartedly agree with it. And they were talking about in regards to Nesta and all of that, where they immediately jumped to, alcoholism and sex addiction, and she's a horrible person, and she's self-destructing in this way and that way and the next way. And then remember, they like showed up to the bar and they yelled at her and all this shit. But it's also noted that Nesta was, one, like playing cards with a table of people. Yeah. Two, using the money that she apparently took from Faizan, which I digress. I think that they owed her that money, but that's a whole other situation. She paid for the rounds for the table. It wasn't like she spent $500 drowning herself in alcohol. People blow up the fact that they think she was an alcoholic. It's like, no. Yes, did she want to drink to drown her feelings? Sure. But alcoholism, you need withdrawal and you need an actual addiction to it, which once she was in the House of Wind, there was neither of those. She wasn't, she wasn't begging for wine to be brought to her. She wasn't shaking with withdrawals. Like, it was never that big of a thing. But yeah, go ahead.
I think it's the Fae thing for this, because like they talk about the Fae wine and how it affects humans and how it really doesn't Fae. I just don't think Fae actually get drunk. I think they get buzzed.
Well, Cassian says in Akaphas, which this is the argument I'll bring up when people say that. He brings up in Akaphas that many solstices in the past, him and Moore had raided Rhys's wine closet, and they would get so blackout drunk that they would pass out on his sofas, and some years Azriel would fuck with them while they were blackout drunk, and he would wake up with only garland over his dick. And he would be so itchy because he wrapped garland around his neck while he was blackout drunk. So I was like, they can get blackout drunk.
Oh, okay. But they have to be drinking some major shit, though.
Yeah. So I was like, Nesta was never obviously drinking major shit like that to be whatever. She was just drowning the roaring thoughts in her head, which some people do. It's not healthy, but it's not alcoholism, Yeah. And the same with the sex addiction. Like, she could have stopped, but she just chose not to because she hated herself and she was kind of degrading herself with it. Like, she didn't ask them what their names were. She kicked them out in the morning. Like, that's more self-harm behavior than addictive behavior,
Yeah. I view everything that Nesta was doing to herself as self-harm.
Yes. Yeah.
And she needed an intervention to save herself from herself. Yeah. She
so
needed
my point,
somewhere where people can keep an eye on her.
Yes.
Where she couldn't have access to going to hurt herself further. And I view
cough, Tamlin and Feyre with the wards.
Yeah.
People love it for Nesta, but they'll hate it for Feyre. I don't understand that.
And I view routines as very important. In my household, we have to have routines because it ensures that everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing, when they're supposed to be doing it.
Yeah.
As a mom with children, especially a child that has special needs. Now, his special needs are not extreme, but he still does much better with a routine than having freedom to just do whatever he wants. Yes. So routines are important. It helps someone figure out how to be a functioning person. That's my whole goal with that child that lives upstairs. Yeah. I want him to be a functioning adult when he grows up, where he can go out and have a job and have bills and have a house and he can manage all that.
Yes.
And I feel like giving Nesta, getting her out of her self-harm and giving her routines that she has to follow was the best choice for Nesta. It was not done well, but it ended.
My problem with it isn't so much that they had her do these things. It's that they purposely chose things that they knew would further degrade her. Because you have to remember, when Cassian's telling her, you're going to Windhaven and you're going to train and da-da-da-da, her exact words were, I'm not going to that miserable village.
Yeah.
She didn't want to be around open misogynists that hate females, even, picking up a sword, gawking at her while she's already struggling, degrading her, calling her all these names like whore and all this shit while she's already depressed and struggling. Yeah. So she says, I'm not going to that miserable village. And Cassian takes it as a personal fucking blow. And it's like, you act like you can't train her at the House of Wind. Like, why are you dragging her there to openly be degraded more because you're angry at her?
I think Cassian's just this person. He was given a specific task.
Order from Rhys.
And he didn't think out of the box until Feyre talked to him about looking out of the box. Because he's like, well, what's Nesta actually saying about
Which is why I give Feyre a little bit of credit in Akasef. Yeah.
Because it wasn't about who was at Windhaven. It was actually how she felt about doing things at Windhaven. Yeah. She is a perfectionist. At the end of the day, she's a perfectionist.
Yes.
If she can't do it perfectly, she doesn't want anyone to see her stumble. Especially people who are going to see her weak during that stumble. Yeah. So once
how would for a second, how would Cassian even think? For 1 second, even going with his own past, why would he even consider for 1 second that being around those Illyrians that are not quiet about hating females training, because he's struggled to try to get them to have their own females train, why would he even consider that would be a viable solution?
I don't know. I'm still hoping for, I think Cassian's frustrated.
I think he just takes what Rhys says at, oh, this is an order, I'm just going to follow through with it, I'm not going to think about it.
Yeah.
He doesn't think about it.
I think there's a certain part of him that wanted Nesta there. Maybe also because he was going to train Nesta personally, which means that he gets to be at Windhaven more, which then means that he can maybe he's hoping that by seeing Nesta train, those females would finally also train. Because
but he knows that they need permission from the males. And so I don't know. I feel like that whole thing is weird. But then if we're taking the angle of, oh, if I drag her to Windhaven, I'll be there more, and then I can try to get the other female, then it would be for him and not for her, which takes it completely out of it being for Nesta's healing. I hate that.
I think it just came down to they told her she has to train at Windhaven because that's where Cassian works anyway. Yeah. And Cassian's like, fine, that's where I'll train her, not going to
think outside the box, because big brain.
Outside the box. And but once he did think outside the box, he's like, oh, we have a training ring.
Literal training ring above the House of Wind.
So as soon as he switched it worked out, and he's like, okay, it's working out. And then Nesta asked to have, if she can put up sign-up sheets for the women underneath. And he's like, that's fine with me.
Yeah,
like, I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah.
And they started showing up, and then he had to call in Azriel. And I do give Cassian credit. He did yell at Rhys twice.
A whole 2 times.
That's a lot.
2 times.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
That's a lot for him.
I am happy.
But I want to say, not to take away the 2 times that he has, but one of those times, Azriel does pipe up first.
Wait, which one was that?
When they're saying that she shouldn't know about her, I think it's the one where they're saying she shouldn't know about the made weapons and her power. And Azriel's like, I don't feel comfortable with that. And then Cassian's like, no, I want to tell her. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, I thought Cassian did want to tell her first.
Oh, he did. But Azriel says something. I forget the actual line. We had it in the podcast, I think in the second to last episode, if I'm recalling correctly. There's a little line that Azriel says, and it's not straight up like, oh, that's wrong, but he says something, and then Cassian's kind of like, she should know about her own powers, yeah. And I was like, so Azriel kind of got the train going on that one, Cassian, a little bit, but then the fact that Amren was like, you don't have a choice, we're not telling her.
Amren was awful in that entire scene. She was acting like she was High Lady of the Night Court.
And Rhys lets her!
Well, here's the other thing. Rhys hasn't removed her.
No. I respect her enough to still keep her as my second if she's powerless.
But here's my thing. So Amren is called second to Rhys. That means Thera's not.
No. And nobody points this out. And I love it. But also they proved that with the pregnancy thing, because if she was really his equal, they would have said, no, she's our High Lady. She's equal in power to you. She deserves to know exactly what you know. And they would have said, this isn't a viable thing that we have to do.
Okay.
And he wouldn't have been able to prevent them from doing so.
Okay, here's a question. We're getting off the Nesta thing. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Can I say one more thing on the Nesta thing right before we go into Illusion? Because I know we have to do that. But my original point, which we got off track on, my original point with Nesta and her punishment and all of that was that they found her in the bar and they assume everything, right? They never ask her any questions. They don't ask her how she's feeling. They don't ask her what she's struggling with. They don't ask her why she's there. And then we find out she's only started going to the bars for the music, not for the booze, not for the men, not for poker, because she missed music.
Yeah. Cassian finds that out.
Yes. And they never asked her that. And the fact that even all the way in Akasif, that Elain has to bring up, even to Feyre, her sister, who lived in the same house as her since they were all born, had no idea that she loved music, no idea that she loved dancing, no idea that all of this stuff happened to Nesta when she was little. And it's like, how are you so selfish that you don't know what your own sister's hobbies are? Like, Nesta knew you liked to paint. Elain knew you liked to paint. You knew that Elain liked to garden. but you never thought to ask Nesta, oh, what are your hobbies? Maybe we can connect on this level. Maybe we can figure out, how to heal you using something you enjoy instead of something you don't enjoy.
I think that comes down to their hobbies. So first of all, Thera is younger. She was not included in a lot of the socialite stuff because of how young she was, where the older two girls were.
Which is why I judge SJM, because I was like, they're only 2.5 years apart. 2.5, 3 years apart.
I think Nesta and Thera are 3 years apart?
Yeah, 2.5, 3. Because Thera turns 21 in Akafas.
And
right? Yes, turns 20. So 3.5. Okay, 3.5. She turns 20, which is weird because, Sarah admits, I'm not good at math. I just kind of fly by the seat of my pants. But technically, in Akatar, it was described that Thera was 8. Nesta was 11, I guess, when they first lost whatever. And then she was 14 and Nesta had just turned 17 or something like that. So like 2.5, 3 years. So then in Akafas, Thera turns 21. And in Akasif in the spring, Nesta turns 25.
Yeah.
So it's like 3 years. Yeah. But I was like, if there was only 3 years apart, like, that's not that major.
Yeah.
It's not that major to make an excuse like, I had no idea what was happening in my sister's life at all. Yeah. Like,
it's just, I don't know.
I would have that excuse. My sister is 12 years younger than me. I moved out when I was 21.
You shouldn't know anything about your sister.
And I still know everything that goes on in her life.
Here's the thing. So I feel like when they lost everything, Feyre could still get paint and Elain could still get flower seeds. Nesta can't get music.
I know.
So that's why Feyre probably doesn't know Nesta liked the music, because they lost everything at a time where Feyre would have finally been joining the socialite parties, and she didn't. So she.
But you're telling me she never once observed Nesta at her party in Akamath when they came back and their father threw her a ball?
I don't know, because like that point in time, in Tar, when they threw a ball, Nesta was still not trusting Feyre. Like there was that whole thing. Like even Elain was like, Nesta's not doing well since we've gotten our money back. She's very mad at everyone, Yeah,
but then they had that scene in the garden where Feyre recognizes that Nesta tore out her painting from the old table at the hovel and she brought it with her.
Yeah.
And then there's the scene where Nesta openly tells her why she hated their father and why she did what she did at the hovel and all that stuff. And then they have the scene where Feyre is teaching her to paint and they're doing little painting lessons together. And this is before the ball. Before the ball. And then we find out that more happened while she was there. We find out that Feyre not only taught or tried to teach Nesta how to paint. She was probably terrible at it, but Feyre tried to teach Nesta how to paint, but she also successfully taught Nesta how to use a bow and arrow. So they were spending time together and they were in a okay place. I find it weird
saying that Nesta was angry at Feyre. Yeah. She just was she knew the truth because Tamlin came for her.
Yeah.
But she also was angry at the rich people that they came back to. Mm-hmm. So she didn't want anything to do with them. So she wasn't acting her etiquette at the balls that were being thrown. It's not the same as what she was before, because now she has a different outlook on life.
But my problem lies in where, Feyre is teaching her hobbies and trying to involve her in her hobbies. At not one point did Feyre think to ask, what do you like to do? Maybe you could teach me one of your things. Like, it's the fact that she didn't ask ever.
Yeah, I think
that's weird to me, especially when you're like, they're spending time doing Feyre's hobbies together. You would think the natural question of things would be like, what can we do that you like?
Yeah, I think that's just Feyre. I think Feyre
exactly
now in Sif is different.
Yeah.
I mean, she's now a mother. She has to be.
There you go.
We're probably going to see a little bit more of a...
Yeah. I just don't like how SJM wrote that, but she did admit, like, I don't have sisters, and if I did, we'd probably hate each other. I was like, that's a weird take, but okay. Yeah. Now I know why you write siblings so fucking weird. Like, all right. Like, the Archerons fucking hate each other. The Hybern twins are, like, having this incest thing. Yeah. Rune and Bryce weren't raised together.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening? Flynn hates his younger sister. We don't even know about Rhysand. I'm like, now I know why.
Let's not even get started on the Vansara brothers. Yeah. What the hell are they up to?
Go, shoot. The fucking Vansara brothers even. Like, come on. I can't. Tamlin, awful brothers.
Yeah.
Lucien, awful brothers. There's not one.
His brothers are the one who adopted his brothers.
Yeah. like Rune, who is probably not even her brother, but like a cousin. I'm like, now I understand. You think the idea of siblings is awful because you were a spoiled only child. So now I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
All the terrible siblings. I was like, but this makes me wonder how your relationship with your parents is, because like, let's look at the parental relationships here.
Well, I think she has two, so she now knows like what an actual sibling relationship is
Thank
like.
God. Thank God. Like
everything is equal.
You get an awful.
Everything is equal.
You get awful siblings, and you get awful siblings, and you get awful siblings, and guess what? All your parents are tyrants.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening?
Yes. Oh my God.
But all right, go shoot.
Okay. This is something I want to see what you think about.
Ooh.
Okay, it's Lucien. And it comes a little bit from a fanfic I read recently that was a Lucien fanfic. You will not read it.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
Not like it. So it's Lucien's fighting ability. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he spent more time training than any of his brothers. We know that. Okay. We know he spent more time learning. We know he spent more time being with the people. We also know he spent more time learning fighting skills, swordsmanship skills, okay, than his brothers. Plus, he spent possibly 300 plus years with Tamlin.
Yes.
There is no way Tamlin did not train Lucien in fighting skills.
Yeah, no.
And Tamlin learned Illyrian fighting skills through Rhys.
Yep.
So there's a good chance Lucien has Illyrian fighting skills under his belt.
Yep.
What is your thoughts?
Okay, I had so many thoughts while you were saying this. So many. Firstly, another point negative toward Feyre is she looks at Lucien after everything they've been through, and then she looks at Az and Cass after she's spent a couple months there, and she's like, Lucien, yeah, he's like a good fighter, but she's like, but compared to these Illyrians, he wouldn't stand a chance.
Yeah,
and I was like,
warrior.
I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like,
yeah, she said Lucien's a fighter, but he's not a warrior.
Yeah. Like, what? Since when, Feyre? And then she has a line in Aka War, which was also in like the tent scene when I think they're sitting and talking about what he did with the Decor libraries and stuff. And she's, I forget the context, but it was like, I loved it because I was like, oh, just the visual that gave me was delicious. But she mentioned something like, oh, she had seen Tamlin and Lucien in the sparring ring so often, their chests gleaming with sweat. And she's like, and I was actually like shocked that Lucien always gave as good as he got. I loved that quote from Feyre because I go, first of all, incredible visual. I don't know why nobody has drawn this. Please draw them shirtless sparring.
Yes.
Please. And secondly, Lucien gave as good as he got. Or she was surprised that he could because Tamlin was a High Lord.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, again, we don't know the extent of his power. Tamlin literally trained him, so it kind of goes to show, like, all right, he learned from Tamlin, so he's going to know how Tamlin fights, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have the ice scene in Aka War, when Eris, knowing about Lucien, because I still think they're the closest brothers, obviously, Eris makes the choice to go after Feyre and not Lucien. Yeah. And I don't think people recognize what a strategy that was, because he knows that if he wanted to, he could have killed Feyre, let's be real. Feyre's like, oh, he doesn't know who I am now with all the powers. And I was like, bitch, shut up. You're barely trained. Like, he could kill you if he wanted to. Yeah. But he perfectly, like, purposely grabs Feyre, chooses her in the cave with a knife to the throat and everything, because he's not going to do that to Lucien. And then they're fighting on the ice. And there's a line where it says that he, like, left Lucien to deal with the other two brothers. And I'm like, you're telling me it's 2-on-1 right now.
Yeah.
And there's not a scrape on this man when they go back to the river house. Yes, he's dirty from the travel. Yeah. But she says something like, oh, he took on both of his brothers and walked away without a scratch. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, he did. Yeah. Like, they're both older than him too.
Yes.
And he took on two of them.
Like, and they were most likely sent to war camps where Lucien was never sent to a war camp to train. You know?
They were sent to drag them back. So the fact that they couldn't even attempt to grab Lucien to bring him back. Like, there was no scratch on him, and he's just double-handedly fighting these assholes. Which reminds me, again, which you said, the Illyrian tactics of when Cassian and Azrael land and they take out their twin blades and they're fighting with both hands. I was like, Lucien is doing the same thing with these two assholes.
Yeah.
I'm like, Eris even knows that he's more powerful than these other brothers.
Yeah. And we know that Lucien carries daggers because he's gifted Feyre daggers.
He bejewels them. I love it.
Yeah. So like he definitely is a dual weapons user. Most likely a short sword and a long sword, or a dagger and a so he definitely is a dual wielder. It's just a matter of like, I love the idea of him having these Illyrian skills, and he hasn't shown the Illyrians yet until one day they're just all fighting and Lucien breaks out an Illyrian skill and they go, what the fuck?
This is the one instance where I would be okay with an Azrael and Lucien fight.
Yes.
Like, I love them both dearly, but if you're gonna underestimate Lucien, don't.
Yes. Yeah. You know? I hated that line where Feyre was like, I didn't like it.
He's not a warrior, though, like them. I was like, if he can hold his own against Tamlin, he can hold his own against the Illyrians.
Let's remember, Tamlin, Rhys says that, yes, he's more powerful than Tamlin, but if they fought, they would struggle.
He doesn't know who would actually win.
Yeah.
I'm assuming if he meant, like, Missing and Daemati is off the table, but yeah.
And then I always think about the fact that Lucien is like a jack of all trades. So he is Tamlin's emissary. But when Feyre goes out with him one day and Feyre's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm taking up a sentry position because we lost our sentry. You know, I'm like, you don't just put someone like that on a sentry position. Yeah. And he's like, I consider it an honor. He
was honoring Andrés because he's like, oh, I took Andrés's post.
He's not a pushover. He's protecting the border, you know? I'm just like, and then obviously he's also a spy master because she mentions in Tar, he's the spy master also because he
can ensnare a Suriel.
So he has little foxes everywhere. I would love it if Lucien actually has like little foxes everywhere and they all show up at some points or something like that. That'd be so cute. That'd be his version of Shadows.
Oh my god, it would be so cute. Oh my god, or I even I mentioned this once in passing on the group, I think, and I don't think I ever went back to it. But I also think it would be really cute for him to have like fire sprites, the way that Azrael has the shadow sprites, like Lahaba.
Oh yeah, I like that. I like that too.
Like him. Like I know that Eris has the dogs, but like what?
But that's interesting that the dogs are called shadow hounds in a not night court setting.
Yeah, they're smoke hounds.
Smoke hounds. Oh wait, no, I thought they were also called shadow hounds. Oh,
smoke hounds.
Never mind.
Okay. That's all right. I have a whole theory thing on that about how they must be like the wild hunt hounds and all this, and that's why they're so rare. But I'm not going to go off on that right now. But yeah.
Here's another thing I was thinking about. This goes to Elain, but also it connects to Crescent City.
Ooh, interesting.
Okay, so Elain keeps saying when they first see her after they get back to the house to night and they go and see her at the House of Wind, she keeps saying she wants to go home. Okay. Now, home is a big thing in Crescent City with Bryce and Hunt. And Bryce and Hunt are Caranam. And also when Bryce learns to winnow, she uses Hunt as her home to winnow to him no matter where he is.
Yeah. I love this. I knew you were going there. When you said it connected to Crescent City, I go, ooh, is this going to be a Caranam thing?
Yeah, it's Caranam. But yes. I mean...
Yes.
I saw that home and I saw how Bryce she says, like when she's winnowing out of Einar's house and she's like, I want to go home. And she winnows to Hunt.
On the Ocean Queen's ship.
Yes.
Of all places.
And she didn't know where he was. And you usually need to know where you're winnowing to. But her connection to Hunt was her home. Yes. And everyone uses the word sunshine when Nesta asks Elain, what can I get you? And she says, sunshine. Everyone's like, that's the Lucien connection.
Yes.
Also home.
Day court, bloodlines. It's a huge theme.
Yeah. I mean, yes, more than likely, she is talking about wanting to go back home to Grayson, to her estate. But
she also says, I think I'm dreaming a lot now and everything is so blurred. So this could have been, just the instincts, and her magic talking about wanting to feel normal again. And really, as we know with the Fae, like you feel your best with your mate most of the time, because obviously there are some mates like Rhys's parents that weren't good. But generally, you feel most at home, most safe, most normal around your mate. Yeah. Feyre mentions this multiple times, like, oh, I just wanted to get home to Rhys. Oh, I just wanted to get home to Rhys. Oh, yeah. I couldn't wait to, see Reese, so I had him come to my art studio. So it's like a huge thing, which is why it bothers me. Well, not really bothers me, but it perplexes me when Elain is so dismissive of him when he is there. But then we also have situations which are kind of reversed where she's just openly staring at him like a weirdo. She's just staring at him. And then we have scenes where he's just staring at her. And I'm like, what is she seeing right now? Like, what is she thinking right now? And it bothers me that I don't know.
Yeah, we need to be in her head. Court of Thought recently said something in one of her posts, which made me like just go, oh my God, I love that.
Oh, by the way, my shirt.
Oh, I was gonna wear my pin. I have a pin for a fox.
Oh, that's
and
so
if
cute.
I ever got like a tattoo, it would be, it's a fox with like a sun in it, and it's so pretty. It's so pretty. Okay, so here's what I wrote from what I saw Court of Thought say. SJM is not a tell, not show type of writer. She is a show, not tell. She is not going to just have a character tell us her feelings. She's going to show us that. So far, she has not shown us anything in regard to actual inner thoughts and feelings for Elain. She has only had Elain tell us. We also have had Nesta tell us and Theresa tell us, but when SJM showed us, we found out their thoughts and feelings were more conflicted and complex and
different.
Through their words, their tell. So, I mean, it's so important to remember how SJM is as a writer.
Yes.
She is not a tell, not show. She's going to be a show, don't tell.
Yes.
And just Elain saying she doesn't want to be with Lucien or be around Lucien doesn't give us any actual insight into where her head is.
Yeah.
And it's important for us to get Elain's POV to finally find out exactly what her show is, you know? Because
I think she's very conflicted, which is why, I mean, so is Farah and so is Nesta. First of all, I just want to say, for the people that are like, oh, she deserves to have a choice and she doesn't even like him. And first of all, did you guys even read Phazan's arc, Nessian's arc? Like, they wanted nothing to do with them at first.
Yeah.
And for me, I feel like the silent treatment is a lot better than open hatred
throwing a
and
shoe
abuse.
at someone's face.
Like,
Feyre threw a shoe at his head. Come on.
Feyre threw a shoe at his head.
That no one would ever love him. Like, that's a lot. That's really harsh.
Cassian says everybody fucking hates you. You know, Nesta is like, I don't want him even near me. She refused his gift. Like all this stuff. Cough, cough, Elain and Azrael.
Yeah.
But just the fact that they're like, oh, well, she doesn't want anything to do with him. Neither did Phazan. Neither did Nessian. Both of the Archeron sisters wanted nothing to do with them at first.
Yeah.
Reese was literally Feyre's enemy at first. She was in Spring. And she kept that energy until maybe the second or third time she was in the Night Court.
Yeah.
Because she tells Tamlin, oh, I have to remind myself, like, there are enemies. I have to tell him everything I saw at the Night Court, right?
Yeah.
She still didn't trust him. She still didn't want to be around him. And just the Nesta and Cassian thing, you know how I think about that. But they've always been toxic. Whatever, they're going to stay toxic, apparently. But she didn't want to be around him either. So just the fact that Elain is, like, giving him the silent treatment, that really doesn't do anything to me. I'm like, that's the most respectful way to be like, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
I'm like, she's not being openly rude or anything to him. Granted, she could have thanked him for the gifts. I will say that. She could have thanked him for the gifts. But at the same time, I get it. Like, I didn't like when she was in the kitchen and Farrah's like, you know, he's a good guy and I just want you guys to be happy. And she's like, I know. And she's like, but that doesn't, you know, obligate me to give him my time or attention. And I totally understand that. And she's right. But at the same time, I just kind of saw that as like, all right, you're just rebelling against the bond. You're going to be edgy now. Like, what are you doing, Elain?
I mean, it's only 3
Give
months.
him a decent civil fucking conversation. Like, I don't understand.
It's only been 3 months and I have no hatred for Elain.
Yeah.
I
get it.
I can't hate her.
Yeah.
I love her. I just know that she's in a really hard place.
Yeah. And like I told you, people always forget that Lucien is in the same place.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, he just wants to get on with the bond. No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
He has a hard time being in the room with her. And,
so that brings me...
my big thing, again, and I will repeat myself until people get it through their heads. He thought Jasminda was his mate.
Yeah.
He thought his mate was dead forever.
Yeah.
He had no thoughts that he would ever get another mate, ever. This could go back to Akatar and him being so willing to die for Feyre and Tamlin.
Yes.
Because he knows what it's like to lose the love of your life. He didn't want his friend to go through that with Feyre.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So he just found this out, that Jasminda was killed for loving him. Jasminda was killed for him, essentially. And she was never his mate. This is a huge burden on him. We already know from Feyre going in his head that he feels endless guilt over her death. This just piles on more, and he's still struggling with this in the first mate scene. Like,
even in Math, where he finds out Elaine's his mate.
Yeah.
Within those first 5 chapters where he's talking to Feyre about Tamlin, he's like, you don't understand.
Yes.
Tamlin got a special gift.
Yeah.
Not everyone gets to have their love of their life brought back to life.
Yes.
You know?
I didn't get that.
He's referencing Jasminda.
Yes.
I think he even says Jasminda.
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't get that. I didn't get 7 High Lords to show up and give Jasminda a carnal life.
I hated
You know? And it's just
and
this is in the same book where he's like, and it's like, this is important. You know? The fact
and even the first scene in the library when Elain turns toward him and he's like, the most beautiful female I've ever seen. And then immediately, guilt, oily and queasy, ran through his veins. I once said the same to Jasminda.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So people aren't understanding that he's struggling with also losing the love of his life, as equal as Elain is struggling with losing Grayson, who she thought was the love of her life.
Yes.
And they won't recognize that. They're just like, oh, he just wants his mate and he just wants to get on with it. And like, no, he's equally struggling like Elain. That's why he's giving her space, because he also needs space.
Yes, he does. Well, that brings us to another argument that we always hear about Elain and Lucien being mates. And it's the one time Feyre mentions asking about bond choices.
Yup.
One time. Just once does she have any questions. Okay. So Feyre mentions one time about the bond. Reference to Elain and Azriel.
Yeah.
I mean, this could have been asked at any time for any non-mate pair with a mate bond attached.
Yep.
Cassian had said, you're my mate in the Archeron estate. And then we see Nesta avoid Cassian in the gardens or something. She could have been, why would the mother choose Nesta for Cassian's love story?
Yeah. It could have been anyone.
But because Feyre asked about how mate bonds work, just once, while looking at her sister and the other quiet bat boy, we are supposed to just disregard only this bond.
Yep.
Never mind the fact that at the end of the book, Feyre says this sentence, end of the book, Feyre says this sentence is, Feyre is encouraging Elain, Feyre is encouraging Elain to talk to Lucien. Oh, at the end of War, she's encouraging Elain to talk to Lucien. Never mind the fact that in Fast, she's angry at Elain for ignoring her mate. Never mind in the fact that in Fast, Moore tells Feyre to give them time.
Yes, they will be happy.
Never mind the fact that Feyre in her bonus chapter in Sif thinks about how Elain should have just used the gloves Lucien gave her. Nothing about Elain and Azriel after this one question aimed at her own mate about fate bond mates.
Yes. And I have the quote. I pulled it up while you were talking. Well, not the whole scene. Yeah. But this is what Rhys says about it. So first, I don't have this one, but it comes before this. First, I hate the argument that, Rhys definitely knows that bonds come from the cauldron. That is not true. No. He lists 3 different choices because he doesn't know where they come from. Yeah. He's like, I don't know, fate, the cauldron, the mother, who knows, ... Like, there's a reason the ellipses is used, because he doesn't fucking know.
He says something about the swirls of time or something like that.
Oh, he says, I don't know, fate, the mother, the cauldron, swirling eddies.
Yeah, the swirling eddies. Yeah.
He has no idea.
No, it's being glib.
Yeah.
He's being glib about his answer. He's like, I don't know.
Cauldron, swirling eddies, who knows? ... Like, hello. Phone. But anyway, then he tells Feyre, a mating bond can be rejected. Even so, Rhys went on, there will always be a tug. For the females, it's usually easier to ignore, but for the males, it can drive them mad. And then he goes on to say, Elain would have our full protection if she rejects the bond, but it will still be a bond, however weakened, that will trail her for the rest of her existence. So while she might be able to ignore it a little better, it doesn't diminish because someone rejects it, which means a rejection is verbal. It's words. It is nothing else. It's not a spell. It's not anything breaking. The mate bond will always be there her entire existence.
Yeah.
I don't know why everyone's like, oh, Lucien can just cleave the bond. And oh, she can just reject it and it'll go away. Oh, and it'll weaken. And it'll
or the other part, they both reject it and then they don't have any pull towards each other. I'm like, it doesn't matter if they both reject it. They are always gonna have that string tied to one another.
The fucking Lucien spell cleaving one is so ridiculous. So ridiculous. First of all, okay.
Not even the cauldron can break a mate bond.
Yeah.
I don't think a freaking spell cleaver can.
Okay, if you think mate bonds come from the cauldron, then you would have to think the High Lord's powers come from the cauldron.
Yeah.
The cauldron could not cleave Phazan's mate bond.
Yeah.
Hybern used it in full charge, mind you, because he had all the feet to it by then. Full fucking charge with the Book of Breathings there. Could only diminish a bargain, not a mate bond.
Yeah.
Lucien himself, as an heir, cannot just cleave a mate bond.
Yes.
And this also goes to Koshi being a Death Lord and having that. I'm not going to discuss Vassian, but having the curse on Vassian. Feyre mentions that her and Helion both combined their spell cleaving power to try to remove her curse. Didn't even make a dent.
Yeah. Yeah.
You think that a Death Lord's curse, someone who isn't even a deity, is going to be less strong than a mate bond from the literal mother?
Yes.
Jokes. What are we even doing? What are we even saying?
Well, I can't even wrap my head around some of the loops that people have to go through. Like the fact that people are like, well, it's a what is it?
It's fake.
It's a corrupted mate bond because it was created in the cauldron. And I'm like going, it wasn't created in the cauldron. It wasn't
created by the cauldron.
And trying to get to Elain. Like as soon as he saw Elain, his face, his eyes didn't leave Elain once.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Never once. The same as
I pulled all their scenes, all of them.
The same as Cassian never leaving his eyes off of Nesta. You know, the moment Cassian and Nesta interacted, Cassian was drawn to her. The moment I
still think their bond is fake, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, I know. But
Nesta doesn't look to him, which is the weird thing, because Lucien was staring at Elain, and Elain stared back at Lucien. Mm-hmm. Cassian was bleeding out on the ground. He was reaching for Nesta, right? Does she give him a look, a glance? No, Elain.
Well, this is
nothing.
My thing with mate bonds is like, I think Nesta and
it didn't snap yet.
They didn't. Well, it definitely didn't snap.
It still hasn't snapped. Just saying. There was no snap scene, but just saying.
I don't think I like to think that Lucien and Elain have like a really strong bond, i.e.
Karenham, yeah.
But like there's a part in that sentence that Rhys is saying to Feyre where he mentions them being true mates. And I'm like going, so is there a difference between mates and true mates? Are we talking about like your mate bond is better than all other mate bonds because there's something different about your mate bond? Because their mate bond snapped really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like really hard.
Which, this is where I think Rhys is just being arrogant because I'll read the quotes in a second, but both him and Lucien stumbled. Same, it's a synonym, same thing. They both snapped the exact same way. Now, my thing with Rhys, again, I can't go into this whole theory. I already have before. But the thing with Rhys is that nobody questioned in the Cauldron scene how he could force Feyre to be his mate and force Feyre to have this bond. Because if you remember, Feyre says, oh, he forced me. Nobody questioned that, which was weird. So to me, I'm like, does Rhys have the power like Maeve, which I was saying, maybe he's a descendant of Maeve because of all those clues. But I was like, does he have the power to create untrue mate bonds? Which could be the case for the Nessian thing and the whole Threads quote that he has. But I don't know. I don't know if that's just his arrogance or if it's one of his powers that he's never told anybody about. I don't know.
It's that part's really hard for me to wrap my head around because I think accept make bonds as being just make bonds.
I just think this is another example of SJM giving us a reason to doubt Rhys, but that's me.
I think Rhys thinks him and Feyre are Karenham, like they're their strong mate bond pair. I don't know if they are. I know that they shared power. Like Rhys pushed his power through Feyre to fix the cauldron. I don't consider that.
That's actually that's Feyre's starborn power because Feyre is a little starborn from getting all the power. Because I mean, if Tamlin is, she would have gotten that from them. And the first time they have sex, she does glow like Bryce. remember?
Yeah.
And, you know, that scene with Ianthe when she screws over Ianthe and she glows in the sun, and then
Yeah.
she actually like touches Lucien and it shimmers over his form. So this reminded me of Rigelus saying, "Oh, your star will glow for your nights." And I
Oh.
go, Lucien is fair as night, which makes sense
Yeah.
because he's protected her this whole time. He went along with her plans and all this stuff. So I was like, Lucien's her knight. But then Rhys is also her knight, obviously, because they're mates. So I'm like, oh, she's going for him for sex, whatever. He's another one of her knights.
Yeah.
So if it can ripple through Lucien, it can ripple through Rhys. And I think that's why she was able to siphon him for the cauldron and all of that. So I don't think they're Caranam. I just think it's part of the Starborn thing, which, you know, I guess people can argue, oh, that's the same thing. But you haven't read Tug yet, so I'll let you.
I mean, Bryce and Hunt are Caranam.
Yeah.
So, and
their
I
whole
see
thing
how
is
their magic intertwine with each other.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you know, that to me is, it's a little bit similar to Rhys and Feyre, but Rhys and Feyre, I feel like they're not Caranam. They just share that kernel of night power.
Yeah, they just share the Daemati and the night. And all
Whereas I
that
feel
stuff.
like Lucien and Elain are Caranam. I feel like her visions are tied to Lucien's presence.
They are
So, like,
triggered.
I feel like Lucien's spell cleaving is tied to Elaine's presence. And I feel like Court of Thought, again, sorry, I quote her a lot. People need to go see her shit.
Yeah, I love it.
She mentioned somewhere also, either in a comment section or somewhere else, but like they're also sharing other things, like the fact that Helion and Elain were able to track the Suriel.
Yes.
You know? Which is something Lucien can do. And then I mean, Lucien can also do it. But then also Lucien knew when Cassian showed up on his doorstep. Like, I thought someone was here.
Yeah.
Even before Cassian even announced himself.
Yeah.
So that's very much like a seer power. So are they
I was saying today. I was saying today they are two different types of seers, which is also a mate mirror. Like, while Elain is the prophetic type, Lucien is the physical type. So he can, you know, see spells, glamours, wards. You know, he can sense, you know, when people are walking up to him or coming close, or, you know, he can sense these types of things, but it's not prophetic. So I'm like, they're two different types of seer magics that, if they ever work together, is gonna go flawlessly.
Yeah.
Like, I can see them both being like the best emissaries in Prithian because they got all that shit going on. But really quick, to go back to the cauldron thing that you were saying, that he felt it before she went in the cauldron. I have the quote here. And it says, Lucien staggered a step forward as Elain was gripped between two guards and hoisted up. She began kicking, weeping while her feet slammed into the sides of the cauldron, as if she'd push off it, as if she'd knock it down. That is enough. Lucien surged for Elain for the cauldron. Yeah. So this was that mate instinct going wild.
Yeah.
When they grabbed her, when two other males grabbed her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it drives me mad that nobody will say that this happened. Because then they're like, oh, she only looked at him after the cauldron and she only felt it after the cauldron. No, this was very much pre-cauldron. She was kicking off of the cauldron, trying not to get dunked.
And we know from Cassian and Nesta that a mate bond can form between a human and a fae.
Hello, Rhys saw Feyre when she was painting as like a human.
As a child, like in dreams. He was having prophetic dreams that he knew who his mate was going to be, and it was a human.
And they actually say that before the wall was put up, it was common for the fae to be mates with humans. Yeah. And that's pretty much why it's so rare now, right? Yeah. Like, it's not, you know, an uncommon thing. And
half of the population is missing from their selection of lovers.
Literally.
You know, of course now it's rare. But no, I mean, the fact that people are like, no, the big bond didn't snap into place until afterwards. Yeah, it snapped in afterwards, but it was showing itself prior. Yeah. Lucien was trying to get to Elain. He staggered. He had a rage moment where he was ready to go.
Another mirror with Phasand. When Amarantha was killing Feyre, Rhys was roaring her name.
Yes.
Like, and she mentions, oh, he roared it like he actually cared.
Yeah.
Like the graphic audio is great, but it's like he's screaming for her. Yeah. And then like Lucien's snarling at the king for whatever. And then even after the fact, which I also had, I'll just say the quote because it's easier, just because people are going to say we're making it up and I need to say the quote because we're not. But Elain remained shuddering on the ground, Lucien's coat draped around her. She did not look at the cauldron, not as Nesta's thrashing feet slammed into the water. She was so entranced looking at Lucien that she didn't even spare a glance to her sister going in the cauldron, which is very telling. Elain was still shivering on the wet stones, her nightgown shoved up to her thighs, her breasts visible beneath the soaked fabric. Guards snickered. Lucien snarled at the king over the bite of the magic at his throat. Don't just leave her on the damn floor. A flare of light and a scrape, and then Lucien was stalking toward Elain, freed of his restraints. Tamlin remained leashed on the ground, a gag of white iridescent magic in his mouth. But his eyes were on Lucien. Lucien took off his jacket, kneeling before Elain. That was before that thing. And then she didn't look at the cauldron. And then it says, when Nesta's poured out, water poured forth, Lucien hoisting Elain into his arms and out of the way. So she wasn't protesting him, really holding her or anything. And then it says, Nesta slammed into Lucien, grabbing Elain from his arms and screamed at him as he fell back. Get off her. Elain's feet slipped against the floor, but Nesta gripped her upright, running her hands over her. Elain. Elain was staring over Nesta's shoulder at Lucien, whose face she finally took in. Dark brown eyes met one of russet, one of metal. Lucien's hands slackened at his side, and his voice broke as he whispered to Elain, "You're my mate." And then, obviously, Nesta makes a big deal, and that's why it blows up.
Yeah.
And it says, later on, more swift as an adder winnowed to Lucien to my sisters to show Rhys what I'd done. The whole I blasted through the wards. She slammed him away with a palm to the chest. His roar shook the halls as Moore grabbed my sisters by the arms and vanished. Lucien's bellow was still sounding as Rhys lunged, gripping Azriel and Cassian, and did not turn toward me as they all winnowed out.
Yeah.
Screaming the same way that Rhys was screaming for Feyre under the mountain.
He has to be powerful.
Lucien shook his head, panting, and whirled to us. Get her back. A mate already going wild to defend what was his. And then Jurian, do you know what Illyrian bastards do to pretty females? Lucien's answering growl was nothing short of feral. Which also, yay, feral Lucien.
Yes.
They landed in the gravel drive, his gaze on me, face hard, as if he'd seen through every lie, as if he knew of the second tattoo beneath my glove and the glamour I kept on it, as if he knew that they let a fox into the chicken coop and he could do nothing, not unless he ever wanted to see his mate, Elain, again. I gave him a sweet, sleepy smile, and our game began. I hate that so much. What if Rhys was held over her head?
Yeah. I mean, this is why I defend the fact that Lucien still works for the Night Court.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, well, if Lucien really doesn't like the Night Court, he wouldn't work for them. I'm like, they own Elain.
Yeah.
They own his mate. Not own.
Yeah.
But they have her.
I hate that quote by Rhys where he says, "Oh, as long as we have Elain, Lucien will play nice."
Yeah.
What? This is a person, not a pawn, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And then this was the library scene. I was in his body, his head, too thin. She must not be eating at all. Another Phazan mirror.
Yep.
How can she even stand? Thoughts flowed through his head one after another. His heart was a raging, thunderous beat, and he didn't dare move from his position, a mere 5 feet away. She hadn't yet turned toward him, but the ravages of her fasting were evident enough. Touch her, smell her, taste her. The instincts were a running river. He fisted his hands at his sides. And then it says, but there she was, his mate. He hadn't expected her to be there. He couldn't breathe as she faced him fully. She was the most beautiful female he'd ever seen. Betrayal, queasy, and oily slid through his veins. He said the same to Jasminda once. Even as the shame washed through him, the words, the sense chanted, mine, you are mine, and I am yours, mate. Her eyes were the brown of a fawn's coat, and he could have sworn something sparked in them as she met his gaze. Sparked. Lucien, for my sister's stories, her friend, yes. And then he's like, do you mind if I help myself to the tea? Tried to sound casual and comfortable, even as his heart raced and raced so swift he thought he might vomit on the very expensive, very old carpet from Sangrava if the patterns were any indication. Okay, Lucien, show off. But this, I think I did a whole reel on this last night. I don't know if you got to watch it, but this was one of the reels where I was describing where I thought Eris was Gwyn's dad. And I was like, oh, well, if Lucien tells us literally the scene before this when they're fleeing, like, oh, I had to learn all my people when I was a kid and I got to do this and that because I was a seventh son. I was like, Sangrava's the Autumn Temple, but makes sense to me. Lucien didn't head for the stacks. He went to the open doors. He paused right between them and said to me, to Nesta, she needs fresh air. We'll judge what she needs. I could have sworn his ruby hair gleamed like molten metal as his temper rose.
Yeah.
But it faded. Take her to the sea. Take her to some garden. But get her out of this house for an hour or two.
Okay, so
like Phazan.
Okay, here's my thing. Yes, Amren said something very similar in her apartment for both sisters, not for one, both sisters. And she was doing it specifically because she needs stuff from them. Okay.
Because she wanted them to suss out the wall.
But this time, I can't remember. Is it italic? Is it
yes.
italicized?
Yeah.
Whenever things are italicized, it usually means a dominance is being put to it.
Mm-hmm.
Lucien's using dominance.
Mm-hmm.
Is something that we notice that he uses later on in Sif,
mm-hmm.
and Cassian actually acknowledges it as dominance.
Mm-hmm.
Just something High Lords can use.
And this was about her well-being, not let's use her as a tool for the wall.
Yeah, no,
it's completely different context.
He is putting a dominance behind it enough that it's forcing Feyre to actually acknowledge it and actually do something about it. Not like, we should get the girls out of the House of Wind. No, he's like, take her out, get her fresh air, get her to the sea, get her under the sun. Something, That's
why they're like, oh, it was Azriel that took her to the garden. Yeah, because Lucien allowed it. Yeah. Because Rhys is like, oh, Azriel isn't the ravishing type. He allowed it because he's giving his mate a choice.
Yes.
Of who she goes with.
Yes.
Hello. Choice.
It's not even about allow. It's about this is what he wanted for Elain to begin with. Even if it's not him who's taking her, he wants her better. And this is what's going to make her better. So sitting in a garden with another male, is it going to make her better?
Yeah, fine.
So what? And then he has other things to distract him by, because doesn't he come down to the townhouse, finds out Elain's in the backyard with Azriel, and then he hears Rhys saying something about the High Lords meeting, and he's like, is everyone having a hard time finding it?
He sees the letters on the table.
Oh yeah.
And he turns and he's like, oh, are those the replies?
And then he instantly turns right back into emissary. He's like, oh, you need my help.
Yes.
Give me a map.
Him and Az.
And I will find you a place to have a conversation, Yeah. And he just was like, okay, I can distract myself. My mate is safe. I can distract myself with work. He's a workaholic.
Exactly. Right.
He doesn't know how to not work.
I know. Elain, see, this is why I love that Elaine's like a gardener and a baker and like all this stuff. Like, she's gonna be like, sit your ass down, have a hot meal, and chill yourself for 5 minutes.
And on top of that, even if, Azriel took Elain to the garden, but we know for a fact they didn't talk.
I don't get why people are like, oh, he loved listening to her. He loved it. He was looking over spy reports.
Yeah.
Canonically.
He's lounging on a lounger, looking over spy reports as Elaine's lounging, sitting in a chair, having a cup of tea.
Yeah, like they're not chatting it up. What are you talking about?
Now there is
I don't think they say more than 5 words to each other.
There is a moment in Fast. Okay, I found it the other day. Someone was mentioning that Feyre, the party ends around like 3 a.m. And when Feyre left the living room, it was just Elain and Azriel still awake.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I was rereading it just to see what exactly it entails. And what Feyre remembers seeing is Azriel is sitting kindly next to her sister, listening to her talk about flowers from a book.
And he's probably like, Jesus Christ, get me out of here. But she's hot, so I'll sit here.
How it was mentioned, nothing romantic was happening between Elain and Azriel.
Politely? Politely means he's bored as shit.
Yeah,
he's sitting there.
He was being kind to Elain by listening to her rattle on about her flowers or something like that.
Yeah.
It was very interesting how it was worded. And I was like, when it's worded like that, that makes me think that there's nothing noticeable between the two of them.
Yeah.
Especially
like, it's not like she said, oh, I saw a spark in his eye when he looked at her. Or
Here it was. Okay, Azriel, it's in chapter 22 of Fast. Azriel and Elain remained in the sitting room, my sister showing him the plans she sketched to expand the garden in the back of the townhouse, using the seeds and tools my family had given her tonight. Whether he cared about such things, I had no idea, but I sent him a silent prayer of thanks for his kindness before Rhys and I slipped upstairs. So in other words, she's very happy that Azriel will give Elain the time of day because she doesn't want to sit there and listen to it.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be like, oh dear God.
But I'm not saying like there is no signs of Azriel and Elain.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the stuff that we know about the two of them,
it's just not romantic.
It's not.
I wish I screenshotted the scene with Truth Teller, because if you look at the scene with Truth Teller, and I've gone over it so much, specifically because of Elriel's, Cassian offers to give Elain a weapon to protect herself. And he's going back and forth with her for like a couple seconds. And he's like, oh, I'll give you one. And she's like, no, I can't handle it. I don't want one, whatever. And then Azriel and Feyre come up and he offers her Truth Teller. And again, she says, no, I don't want to touch a weapon. I don't want to use it. I don't know how to use it. And Feyre, not Azriel, says, I'll make sure you don't have to use it. Don't worry. And that is when she allowed Azriel to put it in her hand. It was not Azriel being like, oh, I'm giving you my special dagger because you're so special and I love you. It was, she's the most vulnerable person here. This is the most powerful weapon I have at my disposal.
Well, also, it is an unknown magical made weapon.
Yeah.
That they theorize is magically made.
Yeah.
But they have no proof it was.
Yeah.
So of course he's going to give her the magical weapon. And he doesn't
just in case.
Doesn't he say it has never missed its mark?
Yeah.
So he gave
it always strikes true.
It always strikes true. So he gave her the one weapon that if she does need to use the dagger,
one little poke will kill him.
do the thing that it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Okay? not a random one that maybe will hit. No, this is the one that if you go to defend yourself or kill someone, it will do the job that it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know?
But I harp on the fact that it was Feyre, not Asriel, that convinced her to take it.
Yes.
It was not a romantic scene between Asriel and Elain alone. And they will always, every single time, they will twist it. And they will always not mention that Feyre was there and not mention that Feyre was the one that convinced her to take it.
Yeah. And then on top of that, when Elain hands it back, she hands it back and walks away. She doesn't even look at Asriel.
Sarah says she pressed it into his palm and turned to walk away without so much as a glance back. Hello! Meanwhile, we have Gwen leaving training, tossing over her shoulder. See you tomorrow, Shadow Singer. Like, come on! the clues are cluing here, you know?
It's so frustrating. And it's
I wanted to bring up the actual Bond scene. I know you talk about Maja a lot in terms of this. How like even Maja was like, "There's a Bond."
Yeah.
You know? Like a mate will know. Whatever.
Because I wrote something about that. Yeah, I did write something about like.
Yeah, it says. Nesta was being weird in the dining room, and it says the sound seemed to startle Elain, who swiftly set down her teacup. She rose to her feet, and Lucien shot to his. Okay, mates. I'm sorry, he blurted. What was that? Moore put a hand on my knee to keep me from rising too. It was a tug on the Bond. Elain sidled toward Nesta, who seemed to be at a near simmer. It felt strange, she breathed, like you pulled on a thread tied to a rib. He exposed his palms to her. I'm sorry. Elain only stared at him for a long moment. Like, she's not flinching away. She's not cringing away. She's not walking away. She's intrigued.
Yeah.
Any lucidity faded away as she shook her head, blinking twice, and then said, Twin ravens are coming. So again, she stares at Lucien, and then she has a vision.
And
what can I get you, Elain? Sunshine.
And it's the first vision she has that's not muddled with other visions. Because up until this point, before the Bond, all of her visions are being muddled together. She's seeing
just
things
riddles.
About Vasa. She's seeing things about Coche. She's seeing things about people in walls.
Yes.
She's seeing things about the
earthworms and the dirt.
Her visions are so muddled before that Bond. And then the moment that Bond gets tugged, she has a clear vision of twin ravens. The next vision she has is Cassian's death. The next vision she has is about Vasa and that we need and that Lucien says he's gonna get her.
Yes.
3 clear visions after that mate Bond is prior to that we had Vasa and Allen mixed together.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue that the time in the library, like before she started kind of losing that clearness, I will say that she was clear about, Koshi having the swans and then Vasa being different. And then she kind of was like, I can see all the way to the sea and I can hear the earthworms and da-da-da-da-da. But also she was turned away from Lucien at that point.
Well, Lucien wasn't even
looking
there.
up. So
at that point, that vision is Lucien's in the House of Wind for 2 days.
Yes.
That's her first vision. She left her room. She's talking in riddles, and Nesta's confused.
She's like, what is happening?
Because Feyre is like, what's wrong? What's going on? When did this start? She's like, she woke up before me and left the room. She's never left the room.
She didn't eat her soup, and she just sat in the library.
Yeah.
Where Lucien shows up.
And Nesta clearly says she's been talking in riddles all morning.
And she sits in the one place
where
Lucien is like, oh, I want a book to read. Let me go grab one from the library.
Yeah.
Exactly like him knowing Cassian's going to show up. It's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is what I wrote on Tumblr. And it's about the mate bond. Yeah. And it's the argument of why couldn't Lucien sense what was wrong with Elain through the mate bond? Because everyone argues that. Asriel figured out she was a seer.
Because it's not something that's wrong with her.
And that's what I said. I was like,
it's her power.
I was like, but nothing is wrong with Elain.
Yes.
She wasn't hurt or sick. He felt hurt and sick. She wasn't suffering. She was suffering from a broken heart and trauma. Lucien could feel.
He knows, yeah. Too thin. She's not eating. She needs air. She needs sun. Take her to a garden. But her power is not something wrong with her.
I don't know.
Where Maja is like, oh, a mate will know what's wrong. Okay? Being a seer isn't wrong. It's just a power. I hate that argument so much. I hate that argument so much.
She was suffering from a broken heart and trauma, which Lucien could feel.
Yes.
But nothing was actually wrong with Elain. Her being a seer was not an illness or an injury. It's just a part of who she is now. It's her magic, her power.
Yes.
That was not something that Lucien could sense because it wasn't hurting her.
Yeah.
Just like, okay, so is Elain supposed to know that he's a spell cleaver?
Right?
No. She's not the one that's going to tell Lucien who his father is. I mean, yeah, she most.
I mean, she might have a vision.
In a vision, she's gonna be like, "We need to go to your father," and he's like, "I'm not going anywhere near there." And she's like, "No, we need to go to day court." And
Your real daddy.
And he's gonna be like, "What the fuck are you talking about, bitch?"
I love it so much. And then again, I don't always trust Moore, but when Moore is in her element and she's speaking factually and not glib and not, for show, I believe her. So he says, there's a bond. It's a real thread. He said more to himself than us. And Moore asked. Lucien ran both hands through his long red hair. His skin was darker compared to the paleness of Eris's coloring, blah, 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 blah. I got to Elain's end of it when she ran off. Did you sense anything? I didn't have time. I felt her, but, ... a blush stained his cheek. Whatever he felt, it wasn't what we were looking for. Says Farrah, I want to know. How dare you? And then when she, even later on, after the whole tea thing in Fast, when she goes to sit with Moore and they're drinking and, Moore's like, give them time. Let them deal with their own stuff. Let him deal with Tamlin the way he wants to handle Tamlin. She's like, I just want them happy. And she's like, they will be. She says, they will be.
Yes.
Give them time. Which reminds me of Elain saying, no, it will not to Cassian, but I digress there. So I'm like, Moore is literally the truth person. I think out of everybody, she has told Farrah the most truths. So why would she lie about this to her,
Yeah.
So I'm like, I really do honestly believe her when she says, yeah, they'll be happy. Just give them time. I'm like, yeah, I believe that 100%.
Yeah.
And then I think you were talking about, you said something about the scene where, she has the vision where we need to find Vasa and he offers to go.
Yeah.
I did I specifically did this for us filming this. So it says, I'll go. Lucien was staring at Elain as he spoke. We all looked at him. He shrugged. It was that gesture alone that made me say at last, are you sure? He only glanced at Elain, whose face was again a calm void, while she traced a finger over the embroidery of the couch cushions. A calm void. Yes, let me help in whatever way I can. This eye, it can see things that others can't. Spells, glamours, perhaps it can help me find her. Elain now watched Lucien warily, blinking every now and then. She revealed no hint of whatever she might be seeing or sensing. None. I hated that. And then the next day, it says, alone with my sisters and Lucien, Rhys and I caught Nesta's eye. For once, my sister rose to her feet and came toward us, the three of us not so subtly heading upstairs, leaving Lucien and Elain alone. It was an effort not to linger atop the landing to listen to what was said. So, this is the first time Lucien and Elain are left alone downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what was said, if anything, but they were left alone.
Yeah.
And then we have, obviously, before the dark wind swept in, Lucien looked back, not to me, I realized, to someone behind me. Pale and thin, Elain stood atop the stairs, their gazes locked and held. But Elain said nothing, didn't so much as take a step downward. Lucien inclined his head in a bow, the movement hiding the gleam in his eye, the longing and sadness. When he turned to signal to Rhys to go, he didn't glance back at Elain. He didn't see the half step she took toward the stairs as if she would speak to him, stop him. And then Rhys was gone and Lucien with him. When I turned to offer Elain breakfast, she had already walked away. Their gazes. It's always their gazes. It's always them staring at each other. And I want to know what she was going to say. What do you think she was going to say? Do you think it was I don't know. Do you think it was don't go? Do you think it was take me with you?
I don't know. I truly think she was going to wish him luck.
Mm-hmm.
I have a theory that she was going to tell him not to go because if he leaves, I think she saw more than what she tells people.
Mm-hmm.
I think she knew that if he leaves, he's bringing her father back.
Mm.
And if her father shows up, her father dies.
Yeah.
And that could be another reason why she's avoiding Lucien is because Lucien's the reason her father's dead.
I mean, she could think that, yeah.
It's a long shot.
Technically, he met up with him halfway, so it's not like he wasn't.
Well, no, it got retconned in Silver Flame. I will accept a retcon if it's a good retcon, but we have to accept retcons when they happen.
Yeah.
In Silver Flames, Lucien's now at Coche's Lake when Papa Arthur takes the bar, which means that he met Papa Arthur prior to getting to Coche's Lake because Papa Arthur cannot find that freaking lake without Lucien's eye.
Yeah, I know. That's what was weird to me.
And on top of that, Lucien, to my knowledge, that lake is on the Fae side of the continent.
Yeah.
How would Papa Arthur be able to get to the Fae side because
Papa A had secrets. I don't put it past him, honestly, but that's just me. Why did he send his ships to Barat, which is also a Fae nation?
How did that happen?
Right? Right? And that's where they got...
No, that was a Fae nation.
That's where they synced, because Tamlin's like, nobody goes near there unless they, want to die or they want to lose all their stuff. And he's like, yeah, for some reason he wouldn't take the long way around. He just decided whatever it's gonna go through Barat.
Huh. I
Yeah.
didn't know that was a Fae nation. I just thought it was I thought it was an
No.
island.
Yeah, because Tamlin knows about it. Yeah, so
Oh, okay.
he says all that stuff. So I was like, up at A. And also like how I was saying the other day, like he knew that Andrus's pelt was a Fae. He let the guy put the runes, word marks, which again you'll get into in Tog, over their door. Like it's very Fae.
Yeah.
So I'm like, he knows a lot of Fae stuff for not being a Fae. I think he's a half Fae. There's a lot of instances in ACOTAR and I think Akamath before he leaves, or maybe it was just ACOTAR, where his eyes would go foggy, kind of like Elain's, and then they would clear up.
Yeah, I've heard about
and stuff like that. So I'm like, I kind of think he's like Miriam. I think he was a half Fae that presented as mortal.
Yeah.
And that's also why, Nesta can see through glamours and she had certain things and stuff. But that's just me.
Yeah, I still struggle with everything with the Vasa storyline.
Yeah.
In the knowledge of where everything's placed. Because Papa Archeron goes to Koche's Lake. To my knowledge, Koche's Lake is on the Fae side of the continent.
Yes.
How the hell did Vasa get caught by Koche when it's on the Fae side of the continent?
Yeah.
This is why
I don't remember. I think his lake is on like an island or like a peninsula off of
I don't remember it being.
I think it's like a peninsula off of the whatever, because I was looking at it the other day because someone mentioned like, where even is Koche's Lake, and they sent the picture. Oh, that was you. Yeah, you sent the picture.
It was funny because we were talking about ACOTAR in the CC chat, and we were talking about CC in the ACOTAR chat, and I was like, so
I was like, oh, it's a little peninsula. Okay.
No, I was like, the only lake shown on the map is that big humongous there in the middle. Yeah. And I was like, that seems like a lake of the death god.
Yep.
It's also surrounded by a very big forest. Yeah. So it's not something that you would easily get to. It looks like almost like the bog of Orid. Easily get to.
Yeah.
But I wonder if Koche can actually astral project from lake to lake. And
that's what I was saying.
If the queens were to make a deal with Koche through one lake and got Vasa to that lake, if she was cursed at that lake, it transports you to his lake. That's why he has so many human girls, supposedly.
Yeah. And I want to know.
There's a story. Vasa in Silver Flames, I think it is, where Nesta's remembering a story that her grandmother told her of one of her sisters.
Oh, her mother. Her mother said her cousin was dragged into a lake by Fae and drowned.
Are we sure she drowned, or is she with Koche? Again, like, I'm wondering because Brianna even.
I actually always thought that was a Kelpie, but then I was like, oh, maybe it could be Koche.
Because like Brianna even says the only way she's talking to Koche is through the wind or something like that.
The cauldron something. I don't know.
But like
it's all weird.
It's all weird, and I like the idea of Koche being able to. He's connected to all the lakes, and he's found a way through his finding.
There's only 4 people, I think, that can hear things through the wind, and that's well, other than the death gods, it's Brielyn because she's made, Nesta because she's made, because remember Nesta heard the mother's voice through the wind, Amryn because remember she says the wind speaks and they will forget they hadn't caught me or whatever, and Meryl.
Elain also.
Does Elain say anything about the wind?
Elain in those early moments is like, I can hear the sea and I can hear the earth and I can hear.
And she's made.
They're thinking she's hearing the actual sound. I think she's hearing them talk to her.
But like, I haven't even debunked Meryl. I have one big theory about Meryl that relates to Crescent City, that I've talked about before. But other than that, I'm like, I can't. Like, she's awful to Gwen, and anyone awful to Gwen is on my shit list. Oh, I hate you. I guess I'll recap it quickly because I don't know if I ever told you this, but when Baxian and all of them go behind the statue, in what temple was it? I always forget what temple it was.
It was Urd's.
Urd's temple. So, and then they go down the weird staircase or whatever, and Baxian sniffs the air, and he's like, "Oh, like a priestess has been here."
Recently been here,
A priestess has recently been here. When do we see priestesses in Crescent City? I was like,
we saw a priestess in the first one. In the first one, she was actually killed shortly after she had interacted with Christ.
Yeah.
So priestesses are in Crescent City. Yeah. They're not very prominent. I don't think it.
But then Meryl is there, and Gwen's like, oh. When Meryl showed up one day, I was like, first of all, showed up one day is very sketchy wording, Sarah. And secondly, she's obsessed with the theory of the planets being on top of each other, the worlds, the realms, the Valkyries, which goes to my Valkyrie theory that I love that they're still alive. The Valkyries, the made weapons, and then when Nesta goes to Gwen and asks her about the mask, because she was supposed to ask Meryl if she could find out anything about the mask, Gwen says that Meryl went back to the sentient books that were warded heavily in the House of Wind, and she unwarded one to look through it, but there was not a lot of information.
And so the sentient books are in Jezebel's library in Crescent City. Yeah. She's like, they're so old that they've now been now sentient. But Jezebel insists that none of her sentient books have any power in them.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, girl, I don't know. Bryce opened one book about hurricanes and it created hurricanes.
So I'm like, but the way that Meryl was able to unward it, I was like, is she another Jezebel?
Yeah.
Is she another person that escaped Parthos, but then, I don't know, somehow escaped the world to, like, escape Crescent City back to Prythian? I don't know. She confuses me, but regardless, back to Vasa.
I don't know. I wish I knew. I have theories that she's actually a misplaced god.
Yeah, she's like, oh, I descend from the god of the western wind, whatever the hell that means. Meryl. Wind.
So I think she's like a misplaced god. I don't know why she's in. Well, we don't know where she came from. She could have come from day court libraries, and now she's in the night court libraries because they have the oldest libraries in the world. You know?
I also had a theory that she was the priestess Oleana that helped make the made weapons, because
that's a cool one.
I know you haven't read Tog, but there's a priestess in one of the first chapters of Throne of Glass, the actual book, Throne of Glass. And Elain, of course, being a teenager, is bored as shit in church, doesn't really want to pay attention. And she's like, oh, this priestess keeps droning on. And the priestess has an 8-pointed star on her forehead. Oh. And she's wearing blue robes and she has flowing white hair.
Oh, wow.
And what do we know about Meryl? She wears blue robes. She has blue robes, flowing white hair, twilight eyes, and dark skin. And I'm like, is she glamoring the 8-pointed star tattoo? Is this priestess Oleana?
Yeah. Ooh, that'd be awesome.
Right?
And
so then I was like, is she priestess from the Dog World instead of Crescent City? I don't know.
But isn't Oleana also a priestess in ACOTAR?
Yeah. She was the one that blessed the made weapons after they came out of the cauldron with Fionn.
So there's another character named Oleana in
They don't name her. But her, it's so hard to explain, but like the ceremony that they're talking about all the gods, and they're talking about how there are objects equated to each god, and so they're gifting people replicas of these objects and stuff. And Elain gets she gets the golden arrow of Deanna. And it's funny because Deanna is like the evil god that possesses her later on. She's like, I don't even care. I'm not that religious, blah, 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 blah. But this priestess is going on and on about the gods and about they're all equated to objects and all this stuff. And I was like, 8-pointed star in your forehead, and you're talking about objects equated to gods. What is happening right now? Sarah J. Maas.
It's like, I know Tog is much older and it has a much better centered storyline. Which is why ACOTAR is so hard sometimes for me, because
it's like all over the place sometimes, or there's just stuff thrown in for like Easter eggs.
Yeah, like Crescent City, very base. Has a very strong base to stand on. Tog, to my knowledge, also has a very strong base to stand on storyline.
Yeah.
ACOTAR, here's a bunch of hills.
Yeah, right? That's my problem. There's so much world building in Tog and in Crescent City that I'm like, I don't know if it's on purpose because of the multiverse. Like, we know nothing about spring, and we spent a whole book there. We don't know what the villages are named. We don't know anything except where Tamlin's palace is and that the wall is there.
Yeah.
Well, Night Court, even. We have Dunmere, we have the Western Isles, we have Valaris, we have, like the Rainbow. We have the palaces. One of them is unnamed. Who knows why it's unnamed, but it is. And we have like Illyria and Hewn City. That's more world building than any other court.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then it's just so annoying.
Why does sometimes ACOTAR just feel like a put together story out of the blue that she didn't really think about? But I know she thought about it because I argue that an author doesn't write a book with characters without knowing where she's taking them. Yes. Which is my argument for Elain and Lucien. I'm like, she made Elain and Lucien as a mate in the second book, knowing where all the other books were going.
Yeah.
She didn't. It's not. It's
like she's literally even said like, oh yeah, it was originally supposed to be Nesta and Lucien, but when Elain and Lucien happened, I was pleasantly surprised. And they would go here on a couple's trip and they're gonna heal together. And it's like you're listening to her and then you're like, doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, I argue like, yes, Lucien was supposed to be with Nesta, but the moment Nesta was on page with Cassian, they couldn't, like, in her head, not actually writing.
Yeah.
In her head, the moment she put Nesta in the same room as Cassian in her head, because that's how writers write.
She's like, oh, tension, yes.
They were like, they couldn't keep their eyes off of each other.
Yeah.
And she instantly knew Nesta and Cassian were supposed to be together.
Yeah.
And then she was surprised when she started introducing, because this is how authors work, you introduce your characters in your head.
I do. I do. Yeah.
When you're making characters and you want them to interact with other characters, you start having them interact in your head before you ever put them on paper.
Yeah.
So guess what? She went ahead and made Lucien introduce himself to her females, and Elain is the surprise.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
This wasn't an afterthought. 600 pages into the story. This was, I wrote Tar knowing about Face Sand. Okay. Knowing what math was going to be. Okay. What we were going to do in math, and who was going to be introduced in math. So she started introducing her characters in the beginning, somewhere in Tar. So she knew Lucien and Elain are endgame. And it just took 4 books to get Cassian and Nesta. It's going to take 5 books to get Lucien and Elain. Why? Because you don't put 2 love stories in one book. Yeah. Because one love story is going to take a backseat to the other one. And the first 3 books was the love story between Thera and Rhys. Not between Nesta and Cassian, not between Elain and Lucien.
Or Azrael.
It's the same reason why Elain and Lucien were not together in Cassian and Nesta's book. Because their love story is not a secondary story. It is it's a main storyline. You know? So they're going to get their own book. It's just the same as with Azrael and Gwen. They're going to get their own book. Their story is not a secondary storyline.
Yeah. I hate when people say Gwen's a secondary character. She's not going to have a continuing arc. Are you kidding me?
She was given plenty of character development to have a book.
Yeah. We don't know who her dad is.
They were 5 books late.
Yeah. We don't know who her dad is. We know that she is aspiring to leave the library. She did for Nesta. She says, some things are more important than fear. I want to go on this path with you guys. She won the blood right. She became a Valkyrie. She's actively asking Nesta about, the smutty books that she reads. So she wants to improve in her personal life.
Yeah.
She literally says, like, I don't want to be like all these priestesses who have been here for centuries. Like, she wants to leave the library. She wants to have her own life again.
She wants to heal.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to live in her trauma.
Yeah. So it's like the fact that they're like, oh, her story's done. Like, her story hasn't even begun yet. What are you talking about?
And my big thing is, well, you don't introduce a new main character 5 books in. Yes, you do.
Yeah, you do.
Especially if you have a long-ass book series. This book series is most likely going to be as long as Tog.
They did not read Tog, clearly.
I mean, obviously, because Tog has 9 books. Yeah. We're at 5 books now. Supposedly, she wants 3 more books, maybe 4. So that brings us to another 9. So yes, you can introduce a new main character.
The second to last book of Tog is on an entirely different continent with completely new characters other than the main 2 from the main story.
Yeah.
Like, this is Sarah J. Maas. Yeah. She's going to introduce new characters. Yeah. Like, what? She's going to give them an arc. Like, hello.
And on top of that, the other character in Gwen's book is a character that's been with us since the 2nd book.
Yeah.
So in all actuality, he can hold his own book on his own too.
Yeah. And she also kept him an equal amount of secret as she's keeping Gwen.
Yeah.
And like,
she's kept us away from their POVs.
Yeah. On
for
purpose.
A reason.
Yeah.
The same reason we didn't get Nesta and Cassian's POV until Nesta and Cassian's book.
Only bonus chapters. Like, only glimpses of what's to come.
Yeah. So there's absolutely no way you can argue, oh, Gwen was an afterthought, and now SJM is doing all she can to fix her impulse to give Elain to Lucien.
It's so.
I'm like, she did not just give Elain to Lucien 600 pages into the book.
Right?
Because I made on page 605.
Also, I want to debunk the fact that their other argument is, oh, Lucien, can't stand to be in the same room with her for 5 minutes, and he's falling in love with Vassa because he laughed at her and all of this stuff. And with that, I give you these quotes. All right. Think of Lucien as a person, think of his morality, and then actually think of what you're saying, because that doesn't align. So it says here, I asked Lucien to escort me, and he'd been more than happy to do so, given that his own status as a mated male made him uninterested in any sort of other female company these days. Aka War.
Yeah.
Right after Elain came out of the cauldron. And then later on, obviously in the Ianthe scene, and she's like, come on, we had fun. Da-da-da. He says, I'm a mated male now.
Yes.
And then later on, I'm going with you, face splattered with blood, bright as his hair. I'm getting my mate back. And then this one. The pearl earrings. Cassian's heart strained at the pain etching deep into Lucian's face as he tried to hide his disappointment and longing.
Yeah.
And then I love this one so much. And then this one is in Akasif, which is actually Nesta, because this is how you know Nesta is healing, right?
Mhm.
Because she never wanted Lucian anywhere near Elain, right?
Yeah.
Now she's healing. They're at Solstice, whatever. And it says, Nesta ignored the collective sense of relief that filled the room and pivoted, finding herself peering up at Lucian, which Nesta's pretty tall. So I love that, like, Lucian's really, she's like peering up at him. I love that. I love that so much. Greeted her with a wary dip of his chin. Elain, the wretch, had taken the seat between Feyre and Varian about as far from Lucian as she could get.
Yes, I love that part.
She calls her a wretch for it.
Okay, I have a stupid theory. I have a very stupid theory. I have this theory where I think siblings have a sense of connection to mates.
Yes.
So, because Lucian and Feyre are very close. Feyre and Cassian are very close too.
Yes.
It's not Cassian. Okay. So Lucian and Feyre are very close. Feyre and Cassian are very close. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When Lucian was willing to talk to Nesta.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of Elain.
Yeah, because
when he was scared of her.
So he has a connection. He has a draw to the sisters too, because that fated mate thing is like, this is my mate's blood relation.
Yeah, like sister-in-law. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to have a connection to them too.
Yeah.
It's not a blood connection. It's not a string, but they have a draw to that person still because they have to have a relationship with that person.
Yeah.
Close to them, So Nesta, when she finally accepts that she has a mate bond with Cassian, because by this time in Sif,
I still don't believe she does, but everyone else does. Go on.
When she finally accepts her mate bond to Cassian, she's starting to accept it. She's also starting to see the connections between her and Rhys and her and Lucian, and she's more accepting of that, of those mate bonds too, and the relationship she's going to have with them. So now she's actually looking at Lucian, and she's seeing a male who deserves some respect or some time, or acknowledgement.
Yeah,
some respect. Again, Elain is not required to give Lucian anything yet. Okay. Yeah. There is a point that it does have to happen. Yeah. They do need to address it. But I
just love that Nesta was just like, this isn't fair. I'm like, Nesta, you were literally threatening him. Like,
yes.
Like months ago.
Yes.
Like, get away from her. What the hell?
But yeah, I have this theory that siblings to mated pairs usually do have a good relationship with their siblings' mate.
Yeah.
And I just like it. I like it.
But see, this is where the Nesta Azriel thing confuses me, because she's so, like, they're so close. But, like, I mean, as granted, if Nesta and Cassian are actually mates, and whatever I think doesn't happen, which whatever, I guess you can say Azriel's technically Cassian's brother. Mm-hmm. And so that's where that kinship comes from.
Yeah.
But then also, if Nesta calls Gwen her sister, that's another connection to Azriel. Yes. So it's like, I just love that little...
Well, it comes back down to something you and Antoinette were talking about, which is like love.
Yes.
And the different types of love. Mm-hmm. So even though Gwen and her don't have a blood love, a familiar love, they do have a love for each other as sisters.
Yes.
And that's going to connect her emotionally to whoever Gwen's mate is going to be, which is Azriel.
Azriel.
So, I don't know. I love Lucien and Elain together.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, like Elain doesn't owe Lucien anything. I know.
I love
there's just a good connection between them, and they work well.
Mm-hmm.
They will work well when they do connect. Like I think I said it to you the other day, but I was like, I think they have complementary attributes to each other.
Yes. I have a list. We have the list.
Like Lucien can be proud and cocky, and Elain can be humble and reserved. And it works with each other.
Yeah.
Like he needs someone to be like, yeah, you need to let's step back.
Calm down.
Let's step back a little bit. Let's really
have some cake.
Yeah.
But then there's also the similarities too. Like they're both like socialites when they're healthy, and they both have an amazing relationship to one specific parent. And they, all of this stuff, their relationship to violence, where they don't like violence, but if it's necessary, they'll do what needs to be done. And it's like all of these things just... That's why they're mates.
Exactly. And it's the perfect for each other characters. Like I shared the screenshot with you in one of your one page.
Yeah.
Or something, but I think it got deleted.
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, it's when you're creating perfect for each other characters, there's like 4 things that you have to look at: complementary traits, shared values, hidden parallels, and potential for growth.
Mhm.
All things
All of them.
all things that first Thera and Rhys have,
Yeah.
and Lucien and Elain have.
Yeah.
Complementary traits highlights how their strengths balance each other's weaknesses, like a calm, organized individual paired with a spontaneous, creative one. You know, shared values, even if their lifestyles differ, ensure they share core values like kindness, honesty, and a desire for meaningful relationships, which we know Lucien is unnaturally kind. Deep down, he is so kind. Hidden parallels, exploring subtle similarities in their passions, interests, or life goals that they might not be aware of initially. And potential for growth, thinking about how their interactions could help each character evolve and become a better version of themselves, which goes back to the recent argument on Tumblr of Lucien's not the book 1 Lucien that we had. And it's like, of course we don't have book 1 Lucien. He's been through hell.
Shit. People grow.
And he wasn't happy to begin with in the first book anyway. He was a sad boy.
He was just cocky to hide it.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Which is the type of character I get drawn to. I'm like, oh, you are way too overconfident of yourself. There is something hidden underneath. Which is why I got on.
He's very much like a hidden, I don't really say hidden cinnamon roll, but like, he likes to be cocky more than like sweet. But there's this scene in Akawar, and I don't know if anyone else has caught it, but you know how in the library scene he stares at her and he's like, oh, her eyes were the color of a fawn's coat, right?
Yeah.
In one of the next scenes, he has a fawn brown jacket.
Yeah.
With gold thread. So not only the fawn brown eyes, but the golden hair and then the golden thread. I was like, you got a jacket that looks like her eyes. Oh my god!
I think that's beautiful because he's like, I want her with me as much as possible.
It says the dappled sunlight glinted along the gold thread, adorning his fawn brown jacket as he crossed his arms. Oh my god!
Aww.
And then like obviously Elain's like the trembling fawn and all this with the book.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm like, he got a jacket that looks like her eyes. That's so cute.
She gets called a fawn a lot, but she also gets called a doe because she's not a baby deer. She is a female adult person,
Yeah.
I think it's the cereal that calls her a doe.
Yes. Yes.
I think it's the cereal.
Yeah, I saw those doe eyes looking at me from across the world or something. Yeah.
Okay. So, and like even the doe and the fox symbolism together complements each other. So like when we go into it, there's always for doe, it's purity and innocence, gentleness and grace and vulnerability. Whereas with the fox, you get cunning, intelligence, adaptability and change, and feminine power, which is with the vixen.
Duh, yeah.
But when you put a doe and a fox together, they can represent a dynamic where a seemingly innocent or vulnerable individual possesses a hidden layer of cleverness or cunning, potentially used to navigate challenging situations, which them working together can prove that. But also, I feel like both of them have things of each other's traits within them,
Yeah, it's like yin yang, how there's always a speck of both of them in each, Yeah. And I love that. I literally love that so much. There's one thing that everyone is speculating on, and that is the fact that I talked to you, I think, the other day about this, the fact that Azriel can scent their bond.
Oh, yeah, I actually wrote something on Tumblr about this, too. And my theory is that they're magic because they're Karanam, or I think they're Karanam.
Yeah.
But I think when they're in each other's
proximity, presence.
Proximity, I think their magic is like weaving together.
Yes.
Like this.
That would be so cool.
And it's like wanting each other. Yeah. So not only is the mate bond pulling each other to each other, their magic is also being like, we need to work. And we only work with that.
Yeah.
So of course Elain is feeling weird because she's like, I don't feel this way about people. I don't think Elain is the type of person like Thera, like Nesta, who can just go and have sex with whoever.
Oh yeah.
She has to be emotionally connected to someone. She has to know the person. Like look, she didn't do anything with Azriel. She wasn't even accepting anything of Azriel until she had spent almost 2 years with him.
Yeah.
Okay? And she's barely done anything with Lucien because she's not having anything with him. But this mate bond is like, can we fuck him now?
I know, right?
And she's like, I don't want to fuck
Excuse me.
I know him. And her mate bond's like, who the hell cares?
Let's
go fuck him.
I love it. But
and just the magic on top of that, it's like, go sit in his lap.
I know. Well, that's why I think this is why she still has his jacket to cuddle up to.
Yes.
Yes. But also, people forget that, as far as Azrael, we know that Reese is like, oh, because he's a shadow singer, he can sense and, sense things that others can't, right? But then everyone's like, oh, well, people only scented Phazans when they were accepted. This still doesn't make sense. But no, because Amarin knew from scent that Phazan were mates, because she like looks at him and Reese is like dips his chin and he's like, don't tell her.
Yeah.
So Amarin knew just based off, scent alone as well. And we know that she's other as well. So I'm like, no, it has happened before. It's rare, but it happens.
But they should not have any scent on each other because they don't spend time together.
Yeah.
And yes,
which is why it's so
smells
weird. It's really weird, especially like the wording of this. So it says, her mate was here sleeping a level up because her mate had been in the family room and Azrael needed to stay by the door the whole time because he couldn't stand the sight of it, the scent of their mating bond. He needed to have the option of leaving if it became too much.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
We also have that crazy theory that like maybe they're meeting in their dreams and like Elain just doesn't understand that it's not a dream yet. And Lucian's like, when is she gonna realize?
I don't think he would realize it either because I mean that's very Damati if you ask me, and I don't think he would understand that because he's never been Damati.
Oh, it would be so cute. It would be just both of them just figuring out that like their rendezvous and their dreams are like actually happening on like an astral plane. Oh my god, that would be hilarious.
Okay, I actually have to get going. This was a lot longer than we thought it was going to be, and we were all over the place. But whatever. I totally want to do this again and keep talking about more and more stuff because there's still so much stuff that we still have not even touched on about Lucien and Elain.
Oh yeah.
Like
we gotta delve into Gwynriel at some point too.
Like our theories on them being why they're Paranam, our theories on are they dream walking, are they time walking? I want to be I want them to be time walkers. You want them to be dream walkers. I think
Elain is an empath. I think she can astral project. I think she does this and that. She might have invisibility.
Healer. I have theories on how she's going to heal Spring. Yeah. And it's not going to involve her taking it over. Yeah. Some people think she is. No, she's not.
She's not. She's not. Neither is Lucien. He doesn't have the blood of the court.
I do want her to be a healer. I want that to be one of her cauldron powers that she also got.
I would love that, honestly.
I would love it. I would love it if she was a healer and I don't think she actually.
For God's sake, let Maja retire.
Yes, she does need to. But that means that she has to stay in fucking night court, and I don't want her near.
Well, that would be the fight. I no longer have a healer. We need Elain. She's not a pawn, but she's ours.
But like, what else? What else do I want to talk about with you? And everyone who watches.
We went through so much shit the other day.
Yes.
What else was it? Oh, Elain and Lady Autumn.
Oh yes, Lady of Autumn. Oh,
they're gonna be so cute. She's gonna be like, I have a daughter. Finally.
Yes.
Thank the cauldron. Cauldron, boil and fry me.
I want to talk about like what's gonna happen when Lucien comes into his High Lord air powers. Like he still has not tapped into those air powers, but he's already proving to be so freaking powerful.
I think the dominance was part of that, and I think that he only did that because he kind of had to, because Cassian was losing his shit. But anyways, thank you for coming on.
I'm so happy.
I loved having you. I'm definitely gonna have you again. Like my favorite people are gonna be like recurring guests. And like I asked the girls, I was like, I'm gonna film with some of the group people.
Well, I'm happy I was able to come on. I love talking about Lucien and Elain, and we went off on our rambles. It was so much fun.
We did.
So even though this is a Lucien and Elain focused one, it was miscellaneous.
like halfway through.
Yes.
Podge featuring
yes.
Theresa. That's what I should just name the episode.
But Hodge featuring yes, please name it that.
I will. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.